So the gold digger gets the garbage. How perfectly fitting. The words hit me before I even stepped fully into the lawyer's office, and I knew exactly who they came from. My sister-in-law Veronica had that particular tone reserved just for me. Sharp. Dismissive. Designed to cut. But let me ask you something before we dive deep into this story. Have you ever been in a room where everyone's already decided you don't belong? Where your presence is treated like an insult to their air supply? That's a special kind of pain, isn't it? And today, I want to share with you a story about exactly that kind of moment, except this one comes with a twist that nobody, and I mean nobody, saw coming. I hope you're comfortable wherever you're watching this from. Grab something to drink, get settled, because what I'm about to tell you will have you glued to your seat. And hey, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from and how you're doing today. The weather here in Georgia has been unpredictable lately, kind of like this whole story, actually. My name is Naomi Bennett. Well, Naomi Hartford now, though some days I wonder why I kept that last name after everything that happened. This is the story of how I went from being the family embarrassment, the woman they whispered about at dinner parties and excluded from photos, to standing in front of them all holding the one thing they actually wanted. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before you click away or scroll to another video, let me promise you this. What happened in that lawyer's office, what was hidden inside that rusted car they all laughed about, and what I did with it afterward is going to restore your faith that sometimes, just sometimes, the universe keeps score. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment telling me if you've ever been underestimated by people who should have known better. But let me start from the beginning. I was 26 years old when I met David Hartford. Young, hopeful, still believing that love could bridge any gap. I worked as a nursing assistant at Mercy General Hospital, pulling double shifts, living in a modest apartment, sending money home to my mama in Alabama. I believed that kindness mattered more than money. That integrity would always win in the end. That if you loved someone purely and worked hard, the rest would fall into place. I believed a lot of stupid things back then. David was different from his family, or so I thought. He didn't care that I came from nothing. He said he loved that I was real, that I hadn't been corrupted by wealth and status. He introduced me to his father, William Hartford, a self-made billionaire who'd built Hartford Industries from the ground up. William owned manufacturing plants, real estate, private equity firms. The man's money had money. And William liked me. That was the strangest part. This titan of industry, this man who could buy and sell companies before breakfast, actually seemed to enjoy our conversations. He'd ask about my patients, about my family, about my dreams. He never made me feel small, even though his youngest daughter's closet was bigger than my entire apartment. But his other children? That was a different story entirely. Veronica was the worst. David's older sister, 34 and sharp as broken glass. She'd made it her personal mission from day one to remind me I didn't belong. The comments started small. Oh, you probably haven't tried caviar before, have you? I forget not everyone vacations in Europe. That's a cute dress, very Target chic. Each one delivered with a smile that never reached her eyes. Her husband Kenneth was old money, the kind that came with a pedigree and a family crest. Together they were insufferable, and they had 2 children they were raising to be exactly like them. Veronica worked as CFO of one of William's companies, a position she reminded everyone she'd earned through her MBA and business acumen, definitely not nepotism. Then there was Christopher, David's older brother. 42, divorced twice, running the European division of Hartford Industries. He was smoother than Veronica, but just as condescending. He'd pat David on the shoulder and say things like, "Well, she's certainly beautiful," as if that was the only possible reason his little brother would marry me. As if I couldn't possibly have a personality or intelligence or value beyond my appearance. David's younger sister Melissa was quieter, but she watched me with this analytical expression, like I was a specimen under glass. She'd married a surgeon and liked to talk about maintaining standards and preserving family legacy. I endured it all because I loved David. And because his father treated me like I mattered. William Hartford was 73, with silver hair and eyes that still sparkled with mischief. He'd built his empire after growing up poor in rural Kentucky, something his children conveniently forgot when they talked about family heritage. He and I bonded over our humble beginnings. He told me once, about 6 months before he died, "Naomi, my children have never known struggle. They've never had to choose between paying rent and eating. That changes a person. It makes you soft in ways you don't recognize until it's too late." I didn't know he was talking about more than just character building. I didn't know he was already planning his final test. William died on a Tuesday morning, massive heart attack, gone before the ambulance arrived. The funeral was enormous, hundreds of people, politicians and business leaders and society figures. I stood next to David, holding his hand while he cried, and I felt Veronica's eyes on me the whole time. Judging. Calculating. The will reading was scheduled for 1 week after the funeral. That's where everything fell apart. I walked into Lawrence Mitchell's office, the Hartford family attorney, expecting nothing. Maybe a token gesture, a piece of jewelry, something small William might have left me as a kindness. I wasn't family by blood. I'd only been married to David for 3 years. I had no claims, no expectations. The office was exactly what you'd expect. Dark wood, leather chairs, walls lined with law books. Veronica sat front and center, Kenneth beside her, both dressed like they were attending a board meeting. Christopher sprawled in his chair with false casualness. Melissa perched on the edge of her seat, nervous. David held my hand, and I could feel it trembling slightly. Lawrence Mitchell was 60, gray-haired, with wire-rimmed glasses and an expression that gave nothing away. He'd been William's attorney for 30 years. He knew where every body was buried, metaphorically speaking. "Let's begin," he said, opening the will documents. The reading started predictably. Christopher received the European estate, the villa in Italy, and controlling interest in the international division. Melissa got the home in Martha's Vineyard and a portfolio worth $8 million. Veronica received the primary estate, the penthouse in Atlanta, and her position as CFO was secured with a guaranteed 20-year contract. David got the lake house we actually lived in, thank God, plus investment accounts worth about $6 million. Each announcement brought polite nods, some smiles. This was expected. This was how dynasties worked. Then Lawrence looked directly at me. "To my daughter-in-law, Naomi Hartford, I leave the 1967 Chevrolet Impala currently located in Storage Unit 42 at Davidson Road Self-Storage." Silence. Then Veronica laughed. Actually laughed, a sharp bark of sound that cut through the quiet office. "The rusted car," she said. "The one that's been rotting in storage for 15 years? Oh, that's rich. That's absolutely perfect." "Veronica," David said quietly, but she was already rolling. "What's she going to do with that death trap? Sell it for scrap? Maybe get $500. She looked at Kenneth, who was smirking. "I guess that's more money than she walked into this family with." My face burned. I wanted to disappear, to sink through the floor, but I sat frozen while Lawrence continued reading. There was more. Small bequests to staff, to charities, to distant relatives. But everyone had stopped listening. Veronica kept shooting me looks, her expression dripping with vindication. Christopher was texting someone, probably already spreading the news. Melissa looked uncomfortable but said nothing. David squeezed my hand. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I don't know why Dad would." "It's fine, I lied." "It's generous. He didn't have to leave me anything." But it wasn't fine. It was humiliating. They'd received mansions and millions, and I'd gotten a car that probably didn't even run. The message was clear, or so it seemed. You're not really family. Here's your consolation prize. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. We left the office in separate cars. Veronica called out as I walked to the parking lot. Need a tow truck recommendation? I know a good one for hauling junk. Kenneth laughed. Actually laughed at his wife's cruelty. That night, David tried to comfort me. It doesn't matter, he said. We have the lake house, we have the investments. You don't need anything from my father's estate. But he didn't understand. It wasn't about the money. It was about belonging, about being valued, about finally having proof that William had seen me as family. Instead, I'd gotten a rusted car and confirmation of every cruel thing Veronica had ever implied about me. I cried myself to sleep that night, and I made a decision. I'd go pick up that stupid car, I'd have it towed to a junkyard, and I'd take whatever money it brought. Then I'd forget this whole humiliating experience and move on with my life. I had no idea that car was about to change everything. I had no idea that William Hartford's final gift wasn't an insult. It was a test. And I was the only one who'd passed. The storage unit was in a part of town I'd never been to, industrial and gray, sandwiched between a salvage yard and an abandoned textile factory. I drove there 3 days after the will reading alone, because David had suddenly remembered a critical work meeting he couldn't miss. That should have been my first warning sign. But let me back up, because you need to understand how I got here. You need to understand who William Hartford really was, and why what happened next made a twisted kind of sense. I met William 6 months before David proposed. David brought me to Sunday dinner at the main estate, this sprawling property in Buckhead with actual columns out front and a circular driveway that could fit 20 cars. I wore my nicest dress, which I'd bought on sale at Macy's, and I was terrified. They're going to hate me, I told David in the car. They're going to love you, he promised. Just be yourself. Terrible advice, as it turned out. Veronica opened the door before we could knock. She looked me up and down in about 3 seconds, and I watched her entire assessment happen in real time. Her eyes cataloged my dress, my shoes, my simple jewelry, my natural hair, and I saw her verdict form before she even spoke. You must be Naomi, she said, voice sweet as antifreeze. How lovely. Do come in. The dinner was excruciating. Veronica asked where I went to college. I explained I'd done 2 years at community college before financial constraints made me stop. Melissa asked about my family. I told them my mother was a school cafeteria worker. My father had passed when I was 12. Christopher asked what my career goals were, and I said I hoped to eventually get my nursing degree. The silence after each answer was deafening. But then William walked in, late from a business call, and everything shifted. You must be the young lady who's been making my son smile like an idiot, he said, shaking my hand firmly. I'm William. Sorry I'm late. Tell me, what do you think of this house? Too much, right? I told the decorator it was too much, but she insisted. I laughed, surprised. It's beautiful, Mr. Hartford. It's ridiculous, he said, grinning. I grew up in a house smaller than the guest bathroom. You know what that's like, don't you? David mentioned you're from Alabama, working-class family. Yes, sir. Sir. I like her already, David. He winked at me. Call me William. And sit next to me at dinner. I want to hear about real life, not whatever stock market nonsense Christopher's going to drone on about. Veronica's smile could have frozen fire. Over the next 2 years, as David and I dated and then got engaged, William became my unexpected ally. He'd call me directly, not through David, to ask how I was doing. He invited me to lunch, just the two of us, where he'd ask about my patients and tell me stories about building his first factory with borrowed money and desperation. My children think money grows on trees, he told me once, about a year before he died. They've never struggled. Never wondered if they'd make rent. Never eaten ketchup packets for dinner because it was that or nothing. You ate ketchup packets for dinner? I asked. Ketchup and saltines, fancy style. He laughed, but his eyes were serious. It shapes you, Naomi. Hunger. Real hunger, not the kind you feel before brunch. It teaches you what matters. What matters? I asked. Character, he said simply. Everything else is just noise. I thought he was being philosophical. I didn't realize he was planning something. The relationship with Veronica, meanwhile, deteriorated steadily. The comments got sharper. At my bridal shower, which she hosted only because William insisted, she gave a speech about how love transcends all boundaries, even economic ones. At the wedding, she seated my family at the back, far from the main tables, and claimed it was just how the seating chart worked out. When David and I bought our first home together, a modest 3-bedroom near the lake, she toured it once and said, "How cozy. It's like playing house." Her home was 12,000 square feet. But the worst part? David never really defended me. He'd make excuses. That's just how Veronica is. She doesn't mean it the way it sounds. You're being oversensitive. Each time, a little piece of my trust in him eroded. 3 months before William died, something shifted. William asked me to meet him at his office, not his home, which was unusual. He looked tired, older somehow, and I wondered if he was feeling ill. "Naomi," he said, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." Of course. Why did you marry David? The question stunned me. Because I love him. Even though his family treats you like hired help? Even though my daughter goes out of her way to make you feel small? Even though you could have married someone whose family would actually appreciate you? I thought about it carefully. David isn't his family. He's kind, and he sees me, and yes, sometimes I wish he'd stand up for me more, but love isn't perfect. You work on it. William studied me for a long moment. You really believe that? I do. Even though you're wrong about my son? I blinked. What? David is weak, Naomi. I love him, but I see him clearly. He's been handed everything, never had to fight for anything, and it's made him spineless where it counts. He loves you, I believe that, but he'll always choose the path of least resistance. And his path of least resistance is keeping his sister happy. That's not fair, I said, but my voice wavered. Isn't it? William leaned back. How many times has he let Veronica insult you without consequences? How many times has he prioritized family peace over your dignity? I couldn't answer because he was right. I'm not telling you to leave him, William said. I'm telling you that you're stronger than my entire family combined, and one day you're going to need to remember that. One day, you're going to have to stand alone, and I need you to know you can. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because I see you, Naomi. I see exactly who you are. And I'm going to make sure you see it too. 6 weeks later, he was dead. Now, standing in front of Storage Unit 42, I thought about that conversation. I thought about the car waiting inside, the car everyone had laughed about, and I wondered what William had really been trying to tell me. The unit was locked with a combination padlock. Lawrence Mitchell had given me the code, April 17th, 67. I punched it in, and the lock clicked open. The door rolled up with a metallic screech. Inside, covered in dust and surrounded by old furniture and boxes, sat a 1967 Chevrolet Impala. And Veronica was right, it looked like absolute garbage. The paint was oxidized, the chrome pitted with rust, the tires flat. The windows were cloudy with grime. One headlight was missing entirely. This wasn't a classic car waiting for restoration. This was a hunk of metal one step from the scrapyard. I walked around it slowly, my heart sinking with each step. What had William been thinking? This wasn't some hidden treasure. This was exactly what it looked like, junk. I tried the driver's side door. Locked. All the doors were locked. Lawrence had given me a key along with the storage unit code. I pulled it from my purse, a simple old-fashioned car key, and slid it into the lock. The door opened with a groan of protesting metal. The interior was surprisingly intact. Cracked leather seats, old-style dashboard, steering wheel wrapped in deteriorating vinyl. It smelled like dust and age and something else, something like old paper. I slid into the driver's seat, and something crinkled beneath me. An envelope. It was yellowed with age, sealed, with my name written across the front in William's distinctive handwriting, Naomi. My hands shook as I opened it. The letter inside was dated 3 months before his death, right around the time we'd had that conversation in his office. Naomi, it read. If you're reading this, then I'm gone, and my children have revealed exactly who they are. Veronica laughed, didn't she? Christopher made some dismissive comment. Melissa stayed silent. And David, my weak son, probably apologized but did nothing. I know my children. I built an empire, but I failed to build character in them. They see money as identity, status as achievement. They've forgotten where they came from, or they never knew in the first place. But you understand what it means to struggle, to sacrifice, to maintain integrity when it would be easier to compromise. That's why you're here. This car isn't your inheritance, Naomi. It's your test. If you came here, if you bothered to pick up this junk despite their mockery, then you're exactly who I thought you were. Look under the driver's seat. Your real inheritance is waiting. William. I dropped to my knees on the dirty storage unit floor and reached under the seat. My fingers found a metal box welded to the undercarriage of the car, accessible only from inside the vehicle. It had a combination lock. The combination was written at the bottom of William's letter, November 14th, 93. November 14th, 1993. The day I was born. The box clicked open. Inside were documents. Legal documents. Thick stacks of them, official and notarized and unmistakable. Stock certificates. Transfer of ownership papers. Corporate filing documents. I pulled them out with shaking hands and started reading. Transfer of 75% controlling interest in Hartford Industries private holdings to Naomi Catherine Bennett Hartford, effective upon the death of William James Hartford. The words didn't make sense. I read them again. And again. Hartford Industries private holdings. That was the umbrella corporation that owned everything. The manufacturing plants, the real estate holdings, the investment portfolio. The private company that generated $400 million in annual revenue. Veronica was CFO of one subsidiary. Christopher ran the European division. But the parent company, the one that controlled everything, William had left it to me. 75% controlling interest. Effective immediately upon his death. There was another letter beneath the documents, shorter this time. Naomi, if you're shocked, good. You should be. This is what real inheritance looks like. Not mansions you didn't earn or money you didn't work for. This is responsibility. This is burden. This is the weight of an empire built from nothing. My children wanted the rewards without the struggle. They wanted the mansion without understanding the foundation. So I gave them exactly that. Pretty things with no real power. You get the power. Because you're the only one who won't abuse it. The documents in this box give you controlling interest in Hartford Industries private holdings. Everything my children inherited falls under this umbrella. Everything they own, you now control. But there's a catch, because there's always a catch. You cannot tell anyone about this inheritance until the legal waiting period expires in 60 days. Those 60 days start from the date of the will reading. Lawrence knows. He's prepared the paperwork. But legally, this transfer cannot be made public until the waiting period ends. Why? Because I want to see what my children do with 60 days. I want to see if Veronica's cruelty escalates. I want to see if Christopher's dismissiveness continues. I want to see if David finally stands up for you, or if he proves he's exactly as weak as I fear. And I want to see what you do, Naomi. I want to see if you maintain your integrity when you're holding the keys to everything they think they own. I want to see if power corrupts you the way it corrupted them. In 60 days, Lawrence will make the announcement. Until then, you're going to live with the weight of this secret while my children reveal their true selves. Use this time wisely. Watch carefully. And remember, character is what you do when no one's watching and you have nothing to gain. William. I sat in that dusty car in that storage unit, surrounded by documents worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and I started laughing. Then I started crying. Then I read everything again to make sure it was real. It was real. All of it. Notarized, legal, ironclad. William Hartford had looked at his biological children and found them wanting. Then he looked at me, the daughter-in-law they mocked, the outsider they dismissed, and he'd given me his empire. But I couldn't tell anyone. Not for 60 days. 60 days of keeping the secret while Veronica gloated. While Christopher dismissed me. While David proved whether he was the man I hoped he was or the man his father feared. 60 days of watching them reveal who they really were while they had no idea I held all the cards. I carefully packed the documents back into the metal box, locked it, and took it with me. I left the car exactly where it was. Let them think I'd abandoned it. Let them think their mockery had driven me away. I drove home in a daze, the metal box locked in my trunk, and when I walked into the lake house, David was waiting. "How was it?" he asked, not looking up from his laptop. "The car? Junk," I said. "Complete junk." "I'm sorry, babe. That was a weird thing for Dad to do." He paused. Veronica called. She feels bad about how she acted at the lawyer's office. She wants us to come to dinner this weekend. Family reconciliation thing. Veronica feels bad? I repeated slowly. She does. She said she was processing grief and took it out on you. She wants to apologize. Veronica wanted something, that was certain. But it wasn't to apologize. "Sure," I said. "We can go to dinner." "Great." I told her we would. He smiled, already having agreed before asking me. "She's family, you know? We have to try." There it was. William's words echoing in my head. He'll always choose the path of least resistance. I went upstairs, locked myself in the bathroom, and looked at myself in the mirror. The same face I'd always had. The same woman who'd walked into that lawyer's office expecting nothing. Except now I was the secret owner of everything the Hartford family thought was theirs. And I had 57 days left to watch them destroy themselves. The dinner was at Veronica's home Saturday night. Kenneth answered the door in a cashmere sweater and that particular smile wealthy people give when they're about to enjoy themselves at your expense. "Naomi, David, so glad you could make it," he said. "Veronica's been looking forward to this all week." I bet she had. Their home was in Tuxedo Park, all stone and glass and aggressive landscaping. The kind of place that cost more to maintain monthly than most people's annual salary. Walking through their front door always felt like entering a museum where I was the exhibit everyone whispered about. Veronica appeared from the kitchen wearing an apron over designer clothes, playing housewife even though I knew they had a private chef. "David." And "Naomi, sweetheart, come in, come in." Sweetheart. She'd never called me that in 3 years. Christopher was already there with his new girlfriend, a 28-year-old named Tasha who looked at Veronica's house with the same hunger I imagined I once had. Melissa arrived minutes after us with her husband Robert, the cardiac surgeon who mostly communicated in grunts. We gathered in the dining room around a table that could seat 14. Veronica had gone all out, crystal, china, elaborate flower arrangements. This wasn't a casual family dinner. This was a production. "I want to start," Veronica said once we were all seated, by apologizing to Naomi. Every head turned toward me. "I was cruel at the will reading," she continued, her voice dripping with practiced sincerity. "I was processing Dad's death, and I lashed out. That comment about the car was unacceptable. Naomi, I'm truly sorry." The table waited for my response. "Thank you," I said carefully. "I appreciate that. Dad loved you," she went on. "He talked about you all the time. Your kindness, your work ethic, your character. And I think I resented that, if I'm being honest." I spent my whole life trying to impress him, and you just waltzed in and became his favorite. This was a trap. I could feel it. I wasn't anyone's favorite, I said. William was kind to everyone. He was kind to you, Melissa interjected softly. Veronica's right. Dad lit up when you were around. David squeezed my hand under the table, supportive for once. Which makes the will situation even stranger, Veronica said, and there it was. Dad clearly loved you, but he left you essentially nothing. An old car. It doesn't make sense. Maybe he thought the car had sentimental value, David offered. To who? Dad barely drove. That car's been in storage since before Christopher graduated college. Veronica leaned forward. I've been thinking about it all week. What if Dad made a mistake? What if he meant to leave Naomi something substantial, but got confused toward the end? My stomach tightened. William wasn't confused. He knew exactly what he was doing. Did he, though? Kenneth joined in. He was 73, under enormous stress. The company was going through restructuring. What if Lawrence made an error transcribing the will? Lawrence Mitchell has been practicing law for 40 years, I said. He doesn't make transcription errors. Everyone makes mistakes. Veronica's smile was sharp. I actually called Lawrence this week. Asked him to review the will for any inconsistencies. The room went very quiet. You did what? David asked. I wanted to make sure everything was in order. For Naomi's sake. Veronica's eyes locked on mine. If Dad meant to leave her something more substantial, she deserves it. Don't you think? I understood now. She wasn't apologizing. She was fishing. Something about the will bothered her, and she was digging to find out what. What did Lawrence say? I asked, keeping my voice steady. He said the will is ironclad. Every provision exactly as Dad intended. Nothing to contest, nothing to question. Her smile didn't waver. He was very firm about that, actually. Almost defensive. Because you were questioning his professional competence, I pointed out. Or because there's something he's not telling us. Christopher set down his wine glass. I agree with Veronica. The will distribution is bizarre. Dad leaves us properties and investments, gives Naomi a rusted car, and then what? The bulk of his private holdings just vanish into corporate structure? Where did the controlling interest in Hartford Industries' private holdings go? My heart stopped. What do you mean? David asked. The parent company, Christopher explained. Dad owned 75% of it personally. That stake isn't mentioned in the will. Not to us, not to anyone. It's just absent. It must be in there somewhere, Melissa said nervously. It's not. I had my attorney review the documents. The will distributes Dad's personal assets, his properties, his direct investments. But his controlling stake in the private holdings company? Not mentioned. Veronica picked up the thread seamlessly. Which means either the will is incomplete or Dad transferred that stake before he died. Lawrence claims everything is in order, but he won't explain where those shares went. They were circling closer to the truth, and I had 54 days before I could tell them. Maybe William sold them, I suggested. Liquidated before he died. Without telling anyone? Without board approval? Christopher shook his head. Impossible. Any transfer of controlling interest requires documentation, filing, corporate notification. None of that happened. So what are you saying? David asked. Veronica leaned back, satisfied she'd set the stage. I'm saying something is wrong. I'm saying Dad's will doesn't add up. And I'm saying we have a right to know where 49% of our family's net worth disappeared to. It's 75% of the private holdings, Kenneth corrected. Which is essentially controlling interest in everything. The properties you all inherited, the divisions you run, they're all subsidiaries of the parent company. Meaning whoever owns the parent company controls it all, Christopher finished. The silence was thick enough to cut. Maybe Dad gave it to charity, I offered. He talked about philanthropy. Lawrence would have to disclose that. Charitable transfers over a certain amount are public record. Veronica's eyes narrowed. No, someone owns those shares. Someone specific. And Lawrence knows who. Why does it matter? David asked. We got our inheritances. Who cares about corporate structure? Because corporate structure determines voting rights, profit distribution, operational control. Kenneth explained like David was a child. Whoever owns the parent company effectively owns everything Hartford. They could, theoretically, override any decisions made at the subsidiary level. They could fire us, Christopher said bluntly. Remove us from our positions. Sell off assets. Restructure the entire company. Dad would never leave control to a stranger, Melissa protested. Then who? Veronica's gaze swept the table and landed on me. Lawrence got very quiet when I asked if the will was complete. Very lawyer careful with his words. He said, every provision will be executed exactly as William intended. Not every provision is listed. Not the will is complete. He said it would be executed as intended. You're reading into things, I said. Am I? Because he also said, all parties will be notified at the appropriate time. What appropriate time? Why not now? I felt David looking at me confused. Everyone was looking at me. You think Naomi knows something? David laughed. She got a rusted car. She's as confused as anyone. Is she though? Veronica tilted her head. Naomi, did Lawrence say anything else to you? Anything beyond the car? No. The lie came smoothly. He gave me the storage unit information and a key. That's it. You haven't been back to see the car since the first visit? Why would I? It's junk. You're just going to leave it there? Not even sell it for scrap? I haven't decided yet. Veronica studied me for a long moment. Interesting. What's interesting? David asked, annoyed now. Can we please just have dinner? This conspiracy theory about the will is ridiculous. Your father was a brilliant man, Kenneth said. Brilliant men don't make random decisions. Everything William Hartford did had a purpose. The purpose was probably sentimental, David insisted. Maybe he learned to drive in that car. Maybe it was his first car. He gave it to Naomi as a keepsake. William's first car was a 1954 Ford pickup, Veronica said. He bought it for $300 when he was 17. He talked about it constantly. The Impala? He never mentioned it. Not once. She'd done her homework. She'd been investigating all week. I'm going to figure this out, Veronica announced. I've hired a private investigator to trace Dad's financial transactions over the past year. Every account, every transfer, every corporate filing. If he moved those shares, there's a paper trail. That's invasive, David protested. That's due diligence. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars in unaccounted assets. We have a right to know. You have no right to Dad's private finances, David argued. I have every right to corporate transparency. I'm CFO. Christopher runs the European division. This affects our positions, our futures. If some mystery person owns controlling interest, we need to know who they are and what they want. The dinner continued, but the pretense of reconciliation was gone. They spent 2 hours speculating about the missing shares, about William's intentions, about Lawrence's careful wording. Christopher suggested maybe William had a secret child. Melissa wondered if he'd left everything to his assistant. Kenneth theorized about offshore accounts and tax shelters. No one suggested William might have left it all to me, the daughter-in-law they'd spent 3 years treating like an interloper. Why would they? In their minds, I was nobody. The poor black girl who'd married into money and gotten lucky. I was decoration, not dynasty. On the drive home, David was quiet. You okay? I asked. Veronica's going to tear the family apart over this, he said. She's obsessed. You saw her. She wants to know where the shares are. That's reasonable. It's not her business. Dad distributed his will how he wanted. The rest is none of our concern. I looked at my husband, at his profile in the darkness of the car, and I wondered what he would do when he found out. Would he be happy for me? Proud? Or would he side with his sister, assume I'd manipulated his father somehow? David, I said carefully, What if those shares went somewhere unexpected? What would you do? What do you mean? Hypothetically. What if William left controlling interest to someone outside the family? Or someone unexpected? He thought about it. I'd respect his wishes. It's his company. He built it. He can leave it to whoever he wants. Even if Veronica disagreed? Veronica disagrees with everything. He reached over and took my hand. Whatever Dad did, he had his reasons. I trust that. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to trust that when the truth came out, he'd stand beside me against his family's inevitable fury. But William's voice echoed in my head. He'll always choose the path of least resistance. When we got home, I went straight to our bedroom while David checked work emails. I pulled out my laptop and started researching. If Veronica was hiring investigators, I needed to understand exactly what I owned and what power it gave me. Hartford Industries Private Holdings was the umbrella corporation for 17 subsidiary companies. Manufacturing, real estate, private equity, import, export, technology licensing. Annual revenue last year, $412 million. Assets valued at over $2 billion. And I owned 75% of it. The remaining 25% was distributed among minority shareholders, including small stakes held by Veronica, Christopher, and Melissa. But my 75% meant controlling interest. Meant final say on every major decision. Meant the power to hire, fire, restructure, or sell. I controlled their inheritances, their jobs, their futures. And they had no idea. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Ms. Hartford, this is Lawrence Mitchell. Please call my direct line tomorrow at 9 a.m. We need to discuss Veronica's investigation and how to handle the next 54 days. This situation requires careful navigation. Another text followed immediately. Also, you should know, Veronica has requested full corporate access to her father's business records as sitting CFO. I've delayed her request, but I can only do so for another week before it becomes legally questionable. The clock is ticking. I stared at the messages, my stomach churning. 54 days had seemed like enough time. Now it felt like a death sentence. Because Veronica wasn't going to stop digging. Christopher was going to use his corporate connections to investigate. Kenneth had money and lawyers and the kind of entitlement that didn't accept mysteries. They were going to find out. Maybe not what, but they'd find out something. And when they did, when they realized William had hidden his true inheritance from them, they'd know it went somewhere they didn't expect. They'd know someone was lying. And they'd be looking right at me. I needed a plan. I needed protection. I needed to be 10 steps ahead of them instead of scrambling to keep up. But more than that, I needed to know. When this exploded, when the truth came out and Veronica's fury descended, when Christopher weaponized his connections and Kenneth deployed his lawyers, would David stand with me? Or would he choose his family? I had 54 days to find out. And based on everything I'd seen tonight, I was terrified of the answer. The car had been a test of my character. But these next 54 days? They were going to test everyone else's. And I was starting to realize that William had known exactly what he was doing when he built in that waiting period. He wasn't protecting me from his family. He was giving them enough rope to hang themselves. The question was, would they take it? Or would I be the one left swinging? I called Lawrence at exactly 9 the next morning. Naomi, he said, skipping pleasantries. We have a problem. Just one. I tried to laugh, but it came out wrong. Veronica submitted a formal request for access to William's corporate records as CFO of Hartford Financial Services. Normally, I could deny that request, but she's technically within her rights as an officer of a subsidiary company. If I refuse without cause, she'll know something's wrong. So give her access. The records will show your name. Not the details, not the amounts, but there will be references to asset transfers to you. She'll see enough to know William gave you something beyond the car. My mouth went dry. How much will she see? Depends on how deep she digs. The main transfer documents are sealed until the 60-day waiting period expires. But preliminary paperwork, corporate filings, tax documentation, those exist in various systems. A determined forensic accountant could piece together that significant assets moved to you. She has Kenneth's money. She can hire the best forensic accountants in the state. I know. Lawrence paused. There's something else. Christopher called yesterday asking about the Impala specifically. He wanted to know if there was anything special about that car, why William chose it, whether it had historical value. What did you tell him? That William's choices were his own, and I'm not at liberty to discuss his reasoning. But Naomi, they're circling. All of them. They smell blood in the water. They just don't know whose yet. I paced my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear. David had already left for work, which was becoming a pattern. Lately, he was always at the office, always in meetings, always somewhere that wasn't home dealing with his family's drama. What do I do? I asked. You survive 53 more days. You keep your head down. You don't engage with their speculation. And for God's sake, don't go back to that storage unit. I guarantee Veronica has someone watching it. She's having me followed? I would if I were her. You're the anomaly in the will, the piece that doesn't fit. Of course she's watching you. After we hung up, I stood in my kitchen feeling the walls close in. I'd gone from nobody worth noticing to the center of an investigation, and I couldn't tell anyone why. The next week was psychological warfare. Veronica started calling daily. Not to harass me, which would have been easier to handle. No, she called to chat. To be friendly. To ask how I was doing, whether I needed anything, if David was taking care of me. I've been thinking, she said during one of these calls, you should come work with me at Hartford Financial. You've been talking about going back to school for nursing, but why do that when you could learn the family business? I could use an assistant. An assistant. She wanted me to work for her. That's generous, I said carefully, but I'm happy with my nursing work. At that wage? Naomi, sweetheart, you're a Hartford now. You should be living like one. Let me help you. I can get you a real career, real money. You wouldn't have to worry about bills anymore. I don't worry about bills. Don't you, though? Her voice dripped with false concern. David mentioned you've been stressed about money. The lake house needs repairs. You're still paying off student loans. Let family help family. David had told her about our finances. About my stress. He discussed our private struggles with the sister who'd spent 3 years belittling me. I'll think about it, I lied. Do. I really think we got off on the wrong foot, you and I. Dad's death made me realize life's too short for family tension. I want us to be close. She wanted something, and it wasn't closeness. 2 days later, Christopher showed up at the hospital during my shift. I was charting in the nurse's station when he appeared, expensive suit wildly out of place in the fluorescent-lit hallway. Christopher? What are you doing here? I was nearby, thought I'd say hello. Buy you coffee on your break. I didn't have a break for another 3 hours, and Christopher knew nothing about my schedule. This wasn't casual. We sat in the hospital cafeteria with terrible coffee, and he made small talk about his business, his girlfriend, the weather. Then he pivoted. Veronica's investigation is turning up some interesting things, he said casually. My heart hammered. Oh. Dad made several large financial moves in his last 6 months. Transferred assets, reorganized accounts, shuffled corporate structures. All legal, all documented, but unusual. Almost like he was preparing for something. He knew his health was declining. Did he? His physical 3 months before he died came back perfect. Heart, lungs, cholesterol, everything normal. Then boom, massive heart attack out of nowhere. Convenient timing, don't you think? I stared at him. What are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just noting that Dad reorganized his entire financial life, then died suddenly, and now portions of his estate are mysteriously unaccounted for. He leaned forward. Naomi, if you know something, if Dad told you something, you can tell me. I'm not like Veronica. I don't care about the drama. I just want to know the truth. I don't know anything. You were close to him. Closer than any of us in those last months. He must have said something. Hinted at something. He talked about character. About integrity. About how money changes people. Christopher's expression hardened. Did he specifically mention the private holdings company? No. Did he give you anything besides the car? Papers, documents, verbal instructions. Just the car. He studied me, and I forced myself to meet his eyes steadily. I had spent 3 years being dismissed by this family. They expected me to be easy to read, simple to manipulate. I used that now, kept my face open and confused. Okay, he finally said. But if you remember anything at all, call me. Not Veronica. Me. I'll make it worth your while. He left a business card with his private number and walked away. They were starting to turn on each other. Christopher wanted information before Veronica got it. They were competing, positioning, preparing for war before they even knew what they were fighting over. That night, David came home after 10. Long day? I asked. Christopher called me. He dropped his briefcase by the door. He thinks you're hiding something about Dad's will. What would I be hiding? That's what I said. But he was insistent. Said you were close to Dad, that Dad might have told you things. He wanted me to ask you directly. And you said? I said you'd tell me if there was anything to tell. He looked at me, really looked at me. Right? You'd tell me. This was it. The moment to come clean, to trust my husband with the truth, to let him be my ally instead of keeping him in the dark. But William's voice echoed. He'll always choose the path of least resistance. There's nothing to tell, I said. Your father left me a rusted car. That's it. Did something flicker in David's eyes? Relief? Disappointment? I couldn't tell. Good. That's what I thought. He kissed my forehead, distracted. I'm starving. Did you make dinner? I'd worked a 12-hour shift at the hospital. I'd come home exhausted, had been ambushed by his brother, and he wanted to know if I'd made dinner. No, I said. I didn't make dinner. Oh. Okay. I'll order something. He pulled out his phone, already moving on. I watched him scroll through restaurant options, and something inside me crystallized. This was my husband. The man I'd pledged my life to. And when his family came hunting, when they pressured and investigated and demanded answers, he'd folded immediately. He hadn't defended me. He'd called to ask if I was hiding something, like I was the problem. The path of least resistance. Week 2 of my 53-day countdown brought Melissa to my door. I hope you don't mind, she said, holding a container of cookies. I wanted to talk. Just us. Melissa was the quietest of the siblings, the one who watched more than she spoke. That made her the most dangerous in some ways. People underestimated watchers. We sat in my living room, the one Veronica had called cozy, like it was an insult, and Melissa got straight to it. Veronica's out of control, she said. This investigation, the conspiracy theories, she's obsessed. I wanted you to know not all of us think that way. I appreciate that. But I also wanted to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. She set down her untouched tea. Did Dad say anything to you about me? About any of us? About what he really thought. There it was. She didn't care about the missing shares. She cared about William's opinion of her. He loved you all, I said carefully. But did he respect us? Did he think we were worthy of his legacy? I thought about William's words. I built an empire, but failed to build character in them. He worried that wealth had made things too easy, I said. That you hadn't struggled the way he had. So he did think we were weak. Her voice cracked. That's why he didn't leave me anything real. The Martha's Vineyard house, the portfolio, those are consolation prizes. He didn't trust me with anything important. Melissa. No, it's true. Dad gave Christopher the European division because he's the oldest. He gave Veronica the CFO position because she demanded it. He gave David the life he wanted. But me? I got property and money and nothing that mattered. Because he saw me as decorative. As useless. I didn't know what to say. She wasn't entirely wrong. And then there's you, she continued. Dad lit up around you. Talked about your character, your strength, your integrity. You were everything he wished we were. That's not fair to yourself, isn't it? Veronica thinks Dad left you something beyond the car. Christopher thinks you know where the missing shares are. And I think Dad liked you better than his own children because you reminded him of who he used to be. She left crying, and I felt terrible. But I also felt angry. They all wanted absolution from me. They wanted me to tell them William loved them, respected them, valued them. But they'd never extended that same grace to me. For 3 years I'd endured their condescension, and now they wanted comfort? The pressure kept building. Veronica's investigators started showing up places I went. The grocery store. The hospital parking lot. Outside my book club. Just watching. Making sure I knew I was being watched. David started coming home later and later. When I asked about it, he said Veronica needed help with corporate analysis. He was spending hours at her house, going through their father's business records, helping her search for the missing pieces. He was helping her investigate me, even if he didn't know it. 3 weeks in, Kenneth cornered me at a charity event David had insisted we attend. You're smarter than you look, he said quietly, blocking my path to the bathroom. Excuse me? This confused innocent act. It's good. You've got everyone convinced you're just the sweet nurse who doesn't understand business. But I see you. I don't know what you're talking about. Lawrence Mitchell is one of the best estate attorneys in the state. He doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't leave loose ends. If the will seems incomplete, it's because it's meant to seem that way. And if he's being protective of you specifically, it's because you're the key to whatever William was hiding. Your wife already has me followed. What more do you want? I want to know what you're getting out of this. Because women like you don't marry into families like ours without an agenda. You saw an old man with money and a weak son, and you played it perfectly. I actually admire it. Women like me? My voice went cold. Gold diggers. Social climbers. Whatever term you prefer. You're good at it, I'll give you that. William was a shrewd man, impossible to manipulate, but somehow you got close. You made him trust you. And now you're sitting on whatever he gave you, waiting for the right moment to reveal it. Get out of my way, Kenneth. 55 million, he said. That's my offer. Whatever William left you, whatever you're hiding, I'll pay you 55 million for it. No questions, no lawyers, cash transfer to an offshore account. You take the money, disappear from the family, divorce David, and this all goes away. I actually laughed. You think I'm hiding something worth 55 million? I think you're hiding something worth considerably more, and 55 million is my opening offer. Think about it. You could disappear tomorrow, never work again, live anywhere in the world. All you have to do is walk away. I'm not walking away from my husband. Your husband is weak and getting weaker. Veronica's poisoning him against you. Every day she feeds him doubts, questions, implications. How long do you think his loyalty will last when his whole family is telling him you're a liar? He walked away and left me shaking in the hallway. 55 million. They thought William had left me something worth more than 55 million, and they were right. They were so right it was almost funny. But Kenneth's other words burrowed under my skin. Veronica's poisoning him against you. I found David in the event hall, standing with his sister. Their heads were close together, her hand on his arm, both looking serious. When David saw me, he pulled away quickly. Guilty. Ready to go? I asked. Actually, Veronica and I need to finish discussing something. Can you get a ride home? You brought me here. I know, but this is important. Christopher can drive you. Or call a car. He was already turning back to Veronica, dismissing me. I stood there in my dress, the one I'd bought specifically for this event, the one David had said I looked beautiful in, and I watched my husband choose his sister over me. Again. I called a car and went home alone. At week 4, everything escalated. Veronica called a family meeting. Mandatory attendance, her house, Sunday afternoon. David insisted we go. She says she has information, he told me. About the will. About Dad's assets. She's been working with forensic accountants and corporate lawyers. She found something. My stomach dropped. What did she find? She wouldn't say over the phone. But Naomi, she sounded triumphant. Like she'd solved the mystery. I called Lawrence in a panic. She found the preliminary transfer documents, he said grimly. Not the details, not the amounts, but enough to know William moved significant assets to someone outside the immediate family. She knows there's a beneficiary she can't identify yet. Does she know it's me? Not definitively. But you're the anomaly. You're the outsider. She's going to start putting pieces together. What do I do? You attend that meeting. You stay calm. You don't confirm or deny anything. And you count down the next 25 days until I can make the official announcement and end this nightmare. 25 days. It felt like an eternity. The family meeting was an ambush. We arrived to find not just family but lawyers. Kenneth's attorney, a shark named Richard Pemberton. Veronica's corporate attorney, a woman named Diana Cross. Christopher had brought his own legal counsel. This wasn't a family discussion. This was a deposition. Thank you all for coming, Veronica said, standing at the head of the dining table like she was chairing a board meeting. I've asked you here because I've discovered something about Dad's estate that affects all of us. She pulled up a presentation on a tablet connected to a screen. Financial documents, corporate filings, transaction records. Over the past 4 weeks, my team has traced Dad's financial movements in his final year. What we found is disturbing. Dad systematically transferred assets out of his personal holdings into a trust structure we can't fully access. She clicked to the next slide. Transfer dates, account numbers with portions redacted. The bulk of these transfers occurred in his last 6 months. The total value moved is approximately $475 million. Melissa gasped. Christopher leaned forward. That money, Veronica continued, represents the controlling interest in Hartford Industries private holdings. The company we all work for. The company we thought we'd inherited pieces of. Except we didn't inherit the core. Someone else did. Who? Christopher demanded. That's the question. The trust is structured to protect the beneficiary's identity until a waiting period expires. But we have evidence the beneficiary is someone Dad knew personally. Someone he trusted. Someone close to the family. Every eye in the room turned to look at me. You think it's Naomi? David said, incredulous. That's insane. Is it? Veronica clicked to another slide. These are records of Dad's meetings in his final year. Guess who he met with most frequently, outside of Lawrence Mitchell? The screen showed a log. William's calendar. And there, highlighted in yellow, were my name. Over and over. Lunches, coffee meetings, phone calls. Naomi met with Dad 47 times in his last year, Veronica said. More than Christopher. More than Melissa. More than me, his CFO. Why would Dad need to meet with his son's wife 47 times? They were friends, David said, but his voice wavered. Or she was manipulating him, Kenneth interjected. Poisoning him against his own children, positioning herself as the heir. That's ridiculous, I said, finding my voice. William and I talked about life, about his past, about normal things. Did you talk about his will? Diana Cross asked, lawyer sharp. No. Did he discuss his assets with you? No. Did he ever mention transferring property or shares to you? I thought about the letter in the car, the documents hidden in the metal box in my closet. No, I lied. Naomi, Veronica's voice went soft, dangerous. I need you to be very honest right now. Did Dad leave you anything besides the car? The room held its breath. This was it. The moment I could tell the truth, and the speculation, reveal everything. 25 days. I just needed 25 more days. No, I said clearly. He left me a 1967 Impala in a storage unit. That's all. Then you won't mind if we search it, Kenneth said. My blood went cold. Search what? The car. If it's just a rusted vehicle with no value, you won't mind if our team examines it. Maybe Dad left something inside. A clue. A document. Something that explains where $475 million went. You want to search my inheritance? We want to solve this mystery, Veronica said. If you have nothing to hide, it shouldn't be a problem. David was looking at me strangely. Naomi, have you been back to the storage unit since that first day? No. So you don't know what's actually in the car? Interior, trunk, under the seats. I thought about the metal box I'd removed, the documents now locked in my closet. The car itself was empty. Fine, I said. Search it. There's nothing there. I watched Veronica's face fall slightly. She'd expected me to refuse, to fight, to give myself away. Excellent, Richard Pemberton said smoothly. We'll arrange access to the storage unit this week. Miss Hartford, we'll need you to sign a consent form allowing the search. I'll sign it. That night, David didn't come home until after midnight. When he finally crawled into bed, he didn't reach for me. Are you lying to me? He asked the darkness. About what? About Dad. About the will. About whatever Veronica thinks you're hiding. Do you think I'm lying? I don't know what to think anymore. My whole family is convinced you manipulated Dad. They're hiring investigators and lawyers. Kenneth offered you money to disappear. And you're just so calm about all of it. What do you want me to do? Break down? Confess to something I didn't do. I want you to tell me the truth. Did Dad give you something? Something real? Something that would explain why Veronica's losing her mind. Here it was. My husband, asking directly. I could tell him. I could share the burden, make him my ally, trust that he'd stand with me when the truth came out. But he'd asked if I was lying. He'd come home after midnight helping his sister build a case against me. He'd let Kenneth insult me. He'd left me alone at an event to discuss me with Veronica. Path of least resistance. No, I said. Your father left me a car. I'm sorry, that's not dramatic enough for everyone. He rolled over, away from me. And I lay there in the dark, counting down 24 more days, wondering if my marriage would survive the truth. The car search was scheduled for 3 days later. I met them at the storage unit, Veronica, Kenneth, Richard Pemberton, and a forensic specialist named Dr. Marcus Webb. David stood beside me silent. I unlocked the unit. The Impala sat exactly where I'd left it, dusty and abandoned. Proceed, Veronica said. Dr. Webb approached with cameras and equipment. He photographed everything, exterior, interior, engine, trunk. He examined under the seats, in the glove box, under the floor mats. He found nothing, because I'd already taken everything that mattered. Check for hidden compartments, Veronica insisted. He checked. Nothing. Under the chassis. He looked. Nothing. 2 hours later, Dr. Webb delivered his verdict. It's a rusted 1967 Chevrolet Impala with no special modifications, no hidden compartments, and no contents of value. Just an old car. Veronica's face went purple. That's impossible. It's an old car, Miss Hartford. That's all. They left furious and empty-handed, and I felt a tiny victory. But that night, Lawrence called. Naomi, they're filing for a full estate audit. They're going to freeze all distributions until a judge reviews every asset transfer William made. This could tie everything up for months, maybe years. Can they do that? With enough lawyers and enough money? Yes. They can make this very difficult. What do I do? You hold on for 21 more days. And you prepare for war. Because when the truth comes out, when they learn you own everything they think is theirs, this family is going to come at you with everything they have. I hung up and looked at David, asleep in our bed, and I wondered whose side he'd choose when the battle began. I was about to find out. The first lawsuit arrived 3 days after the meeting. Hartford versus Hartford. Veronica, Christopher, and Melissa, yes, even quiet Melissa had been pressured to join, were suing me for undue influence, claiming I'd manipulated William during a period of diminished mental capacity. The second lawsuit came 2 days later. This one from the Hartford Industries Board of Directors, several of whom were family friends. They were seeking an injunction to prevent me from taking any control of the company until the legitimacy of the transfer could be verified. By the end of week 1, I was drowning in legal paperwork. They're using a scorched earth strategy, Lawrence explained during one of our daily calls. File everything possible, tie you up in depositions and court appearances, bleed you financially until you settle. I own $1 billion company. How can they bleed me financially? Because your assets are the company, and the company is frozen in litigation. You can't access operational funds. You can't sell shares. Everything is locked up until the courts rule. Meanwhile, legal fees are piling up at about $50,000 a week. I did the math. At that rate, I'd burn through my personal savings, the money I'd actually earned working, in about 3 months. What do? You hold on. You fight. And you pray the judge moves quickly. The judge did not move quickly. David moved out officially 1 week after the meeting. I came home from a brutal deposition to find half our closet empty. His toiletries gone. His laptop, his books, his coffee maker that he loved more than most people. He'd left a note on the kitchen counter, staying at the Ritz until I figure things out. My lawyer will be in touch about separation papers. Not divorce papers. Not yet. But separation. The first step. I called him. He didn't answer. I texted, "Please, can we talk? Please." 3 hours later, not yet. I need space. Space. Everyone needed space from me. Space to figure out how to destroy me without getting too close. The hospital called me in for a meeting the next day. Dr. Patricia Vance, the chief nursing officer, sat across from me with an expression of deep regret. "Naomi, you've been an exemplary employee for 5 years. Your patient reviews are outstanding. Your colleagues respect you. But we have a situation." "What situation?" "The Hartford family has significant ties to this hospital. Kenneth Hartford sits on our board. The Hartford Foundation donated $15 million for our cardiac wing. And they're making it very clear that your continued employment here is problematic for them." My stomach dropped. "They're threatening you. They're expressing concerns about workplace disruption, media attention, potential litigation distraction. They've suggested that your focus might be divided given your legal situation." "My legal situation doesn't affect my nursing." "I know. But Naomi, we're a private hospital. We depend on donors. And when a donor as significant as the Hartford family expresses concerns..." She slid a paper across the desk. "We're offering a generous severance package. 6 months salary, continuation of health benefits, positive references." "You're firing me." "We're offering a mutually beneficial separation." "You're firing me because Kenneth Hartford told you to." She had the grace to look ashamed. "I'm sorry. I fought this. But the board voted. It's effective immediately." I cleaned out my locker in a daze. 5 years of my life. Patients I cared about. Colleagues who'd become friends. Gone, because Veronica and Kenneth wanted to hurt me, and this was how they could. I sat in my car in the parking lot and cried until I couldn't breathe. Then my phone rang. "Mama." "Baby girl, what's going on?" Her voice was tight with worry. "I got a call from a reporter asking about you and some inheritance and some family in Georgia." "What's happening?" "The media." "Of course." Veronica had leaked it to the media. "Mama, it's complicated." "Complicated?" "Baby, this woman called me at work. Asked if I raised you to seduce old men for money. Asked if our family had a history of con artists. She was nasty, Naomi. Real nasty. Made me so upset I had to leave my shift early. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Mama. Tell me the truth. Did you do something wrong?" The question hit like a slap. Even my own mother wasn't sure. "No, Mama. David's father left me part of his company. His other children think I manipulated him. I didn't. But they're powerful and they're trying to destroy me. Lord have mercy. How much did he leave you? A lot. How much is a lot? I hesitated. Controlling interest in a company worth about $2 billion. Silence. Long, stretching silence. Mama? 2 billion. Her voice was faint. Baby, what did you do? Nothing. I was kind to him. I was his friend. He valued that. He wanted someone he trusted running his company. And you didn't think to tell your own mama you were inheriting billions of dollars? I couldn't tell anyone. There was a legal waiting period. You couldn't tell your own mother? The woman who raised you? Who worked double shifts so you could go to college? Her voice cracked. Who am I to you, Naomi? Not even worth trusting. It wasn't like that. I gotta go. I can't think about this right now. I can't process my daughter keeping secrets and reporters calling my job and billions of dollars. I just can't. She hung up. I tried calling back. She didn't answer. I'd lost my husband, my job, and now my mother thought I was a stranger. The media coverage started that night. Local nurse accused of manipulating dying billionaire read the headline on the evening news. They used an old photo of me from the hospital, smiling in scrubs, next to a photo of William at some charity event. The juxtaposition made it look sordid. The news anchor, the Hartford family, prominent Atlanta philanthropists, is embroiled in a legal battle over patriarch William Hartford's will. Sources say the bulk of his estate was left to his daughter-in-law, a nursing assistant he'd known for only 3 years, cutting his biological children out of their inheritance. The family is seeking to invalidate the will on grounds of undue influence. They demoted me from nurse to nursing assistant. Made it sound even more like a gold-digging scheme. My phone exploded with calls. Reporters. People from high school I hadn't spoken to in years. Distant cousins suddenly interested in my life. I turned it off and sat in the dark in my empty house. The next week brought more nightmares. Someone leaked my address. Protesters showed up outside my house with signs, "Gold digger go home," and "Justice for the Hartford family." I had to call the police 3 times before they finally sent a patrol car to disperse them. My car was vandalized. Keyed from front to back, tires slashed, windshield smashed. The security cameras caught nothing. David's lawyer sent formal separation papers. I had 30 days to respond. The Hartford legal team demanded I sit for depositions. Hours and hours of hostile questioning about every conversation I'd ever had with William, every meeting, every phone call. They asked about my sex life with David, implying I'd used sexual manipulation. They asked about my financial situation before marriage, painting me as desperate. They asked about my relationship with my father, who died when I was 12, suggesting I had daddy issues that made me target older men. It was humiliating, degrading, designed to break me. And it was working. I stopped sleeping. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Veronica's face, heard her threats, felt the weight of legal documents piling up. I stopped eating. Food tasted like ash. My clothes started hanging loose. I stopped leaving the house except for court appearances and depositions. What was the point? I had no job, no husband, no friends who weren't terrified of being associated with me. Lawrence was worried. Naomi, you need to take care of yourself. You look exhausted. I am exhausted. Have you talked to anyone? A therapist? A counselor? Who wants to counsel the woman everyone thinks is a manipulative gold digger? You didn't do anything wrong. Then why does everything feel wrong? 2 weeks into my darkest period, Christopher showed up at my door. I almost didn't answer, but he kept knocking. Finally, I opened it a crack. What do you want? To make you an offer. He looked almost sympathetic. Almost. This is destroying everyone, Naomi. You, David, the whole family. Veronica's obsessed. She's spending hundreds of thousands on lawyers. The company is suffering because everything's frozen in litigation. Dad's legacy is being torn apart. I'm not giving up the inheritance. I'm not asking you to. Not entirely. He handed me a folder. This is a settlement proposal. You keep 10% of the company, which is still worth about $200 million. You walk away wealthy, we drop all legal action, and you divorce David quietly. No media circus, no more fighting. You get generational wealth and your life back. And you get control of Hartford Industries. The family gets control. Where it should be. Your father didn't think so. My father was an old man who got charmed by a pretty face and a sob story. I don't blame you for that. You saw an opportunity and took it. That's smart. But holding on now? That's just stubborn. Take the deal, Naomi. $200 million. More money than you could spend in 10 lifetimes. Walk away. I looked at the proposal. $200 million. Financial security forever. An end to the lawsuits, the media, the constant attacks. I need to think about it. You have 48 hours. After that, we pull the offer and escalate the legal battle. Veronica wants to file criminal charges next. Fraud, theft, elder abuse. I've been holding her back, but I won't forever. He left. I read through the settlement offer. It was actually generous in a way. More money than I'd ever dreamed of. Freedom from this nightmare. All I had to do was give up everything William had trusted me with. That night, David called. First time in 3 weeks. Christopher told me about the offer. He said without preamble, "You should take it. You think I should give up your father's company? I think you should save yourself. This is killing you, Naomi. I can see it even from a distance. You look sick. You look broken. Take the money and start over somewhere else. What about us?" Silence. David? What about our marriage? I don't know if there's an us anymore, he said quietly. I don't know if there can be. Every time I look at you, I see the lies. The secrets. The fact that you trusted my dead father more than you trusted me. I was following his wishes. I know. And maybe that makes you noble. Maybe that makes you loyal. But it doesn't make me feel any less betrayed. He paused. Take the settlement. Divorce me. Start fresh somewhere. You'll be rich, you'll be free, and maybe we can both find some peace. You want a divorce? I want to stop hurting. And being married to you hurts every single day. He hung up. I sat with that for a long time. My husband wanted me gone. My mother wouldn't speak to me. My job was gone. My reputation destroyed. The settlement offer sat on my coffee table, promising escape. $200 million and my life back. I thought about William's letter. About protecting his legacy. About being strong enough. But I was so tired of being strong. I picked up the settlement papers and read them again. Really read them. There was a clause buried in the middle. If I accepted, I would sign a non-disclosure agreement. I couldn't talk about William, about his wishes, about why he'd left me the company. I couldn't defend myself. I'd take the money and disappear, and the narrative would be that I'd manipulated an old man and then taken a payout when I got caught. That's what they wanted. Not just the company. They wanted to rewrite history. They wanted William's final choice erased. They wanted to pretend I'd never mattered. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. It was a photo. Me leaving a deposition, looking haggard and thin. The caption, "How the mighty gold digger has fallen." Then another text, another photo. This one of my mama's house in Alabama. Just the house. Nothing else. The message was clear. We can get to your family too. I stared at that photo, at my childhood home, and something inside me snapped. Not broke. Snapped into place. They'd taken my job. My husband. My reputation. They'd turned the media against me, the public against me, my own mother against me. But that photo of Mama's house? That was a threat too far. I picked up my phone and called Lawrence. "I'm not taking the settlement," I said. "Naomi, you need to think carefully." I have thought carefully. They're threatening my mother now. They've taken everything they can from me here, so they're going after her. And if I give in, if I take their money and disappear, they win. They rewrite William's story. They pretend his final choice didn't matter. They're going to make your life hell. They already have. It can't get worse than this. It can always get worse. Then let it. Because I'm done being afraid. I'm done letting them push me around. William left me his company for a reason. He trusted me to be strong enough to handle his children. Well, they've shown me exactly who they are. Now I'm going to show them who I am. What are you going to do? I'm going to stop playing defense and start playing offense. I own 75% of Hartford Industries, right? That means I have power. Real power. I just haven't used it yet. The company's frozen in litigation for major decisions. But I can still access information. Personnel files, financial records, corporate communications. And I'm betting if I dig deep enough, I'll find out exactly what the Hartford children have been doing with their positions in the company. Lawrence was quiet for a moment. You're talking about investigating them. I'm talking about due diligence. I'm the majority shareholder. I have a right to know how my company's being run. If you find something, when I find something, because people who are this desperate to keep power usually have something to hide. This will escalate everything. Good. I'm tired of being the victim. It's time to remind them who actually owns Hartford Industries. I hung up and looked at the settlement offer one more time. Then I tore it in half. I'd lost everything. My marriage, my job, my mother's trust, my reputation. But I still had William's company. And I still had my integrity. And if that was all I had left, then that's what I'd fight with. The Hartford family wanted war? They were about to get it. But first, I had to survive one more blow. The next morning, I woke up to find news vans camped outside my house. Someone had leaked the settlement offer and my rejection of it. The headlines screamed, "Greedy nurse rejects $200 million, holds dying man's company hostage." My phone, which I'd turned back on, had 247 missed calls. And there was one email that made my blood run cold. From David's lawyer, "In light of your rejection of the Hartford family's generous settlement offer and your continued harassment of the family, we are accelerating divorce proceedings. Papers will be served today. Additionally, Mr. Hartford is seeking a restraining order preventing you from contacting him or any member of his family." A restraining order. Against his own wife. I sat on my bathroom floor and let myself break down completely. Sobbing, shaking, unable to breathe. This was rock bottom. This was as low as I could go. Jobless. Alone. Separated from my husband. Estranged from my mother. Hunted by the media. Threatened by one of the wealthiest families in Georgia. I had nothing left to lose. Which meant, for the first time since this nightmare began, I was finally free to fight back without fear. And that's exactly what I was going to do. I stayed on that bathroom floor for 20 minutes. Maybe 30. Time felt strange. Then my doorbell rang. I ignored it. Had to be more reporters, more process servers, more people wanting to document my destruction. It rang again. And again. "Naomi." A voice called through the door. "Naomi, I know you're in there. It's Marcus Webb, the forensic specialist from the car search. Please open the door." Marcus Webb? Why would the forensic specialist Veronica had hired me at my door? I dragged myself up, wiped my face, and checked the peephole. He was alone, no cameras, looking nervous. I opened the door a crack. "What do you want?" "To give you something I should have given you weeks ago." He glanced around. "Can I come in?" "I don't want anyone seeing me here." Against my better judgment, I let him in. He was mid-50s, gray at the temples, carrying a leather messenger bag. Once inside, he pulled out a tablet. "I need to show you something." When the Hartford family hired me to examine that car, they were very specific about what they wanted me to find. Or rather, what they wanted me to say I didn't find. My heart started pounding. "I don't understand." There was a metal box welded under the driver's seat. A hiding spot. I found evidence of it, scrape marks where it had been removed recently. I told Veronica Hartford about it. She told me to say there was nothing there. She paid you to lie? She paid me very well to lie. $200,000 deposited into my account the day after I delivered my report. He pulled up bank records on his tablet. I've done forensic work for 30 years. I've never falsified a report. But $200,000 would put both my kids through college debt-free, and she made it very clear that if I didn't cooperate, she'd destroy my reputation. Why are you telling me this now? Because I watched the news this morning. I saw what they're doing to you. How they're painting you as some kind of predator when all you did was inherit something from a man who clearly cared about you. He set the tablet down. And because Veronica Hartford contacted me again yesterday. For what? She wants me to testify in court that I found evidence of tampering with the car. That you removed documents before I examined it, which proves you were hiding something and knew the inheritance was fraudulent. He looked me in the eye. She wants me to commit perjury. And she's offering me $500,000 to do it. Are you going to? No. I'm going to give you these instead. He pulled a folder from his bag. Copies of all my communications with Veronica Hartford. Emails where she explicitly tells me what to say and what to omit. Bank records showing the payments. And a sworn affidavit stating the truth, that there was evidence of a hidden compartment in that car, that I found it, and that Veronica paid me to hide it. I stared at the documents. This is evidence of witness tampering. Fraud. Obstruction. Yes, it is. And it's yours. Use it however you need to. He stood. I can't testify publicly. I have a family to protect. But these documents are legitimate. They'll hold up in court if you need them. Why? I asked. Why risk this? Because my daughter is 23. She's bright, ambitious, working her way through grad school. And if someone tried to do to her what the Hartford family is doing to you, I'd want someone to help her. He headed for the door. Good luck, Miss Hartford. I think you're going to need it. He left. I stood holding the folder, hands shaking. Evidence. Real, tangible evidence of Veronica's corruption. It was the first piece of good news I'd had in weeks. I called Lawrence immediately. Veronica paid the forensic specialist to falsify his report, I said. I have proof. Emails, bank records, everything. Send them to me right now. This changes everything. If we can prove witness tampering, we can discredit her entire case. We might even get the lawsuits dismissed. What do I do? You hold on to those documents like your life depends on them. Because it does. And you start digging, Naomi. You own this company. Start acting like it. After we hung up, I looked around my empty house. The house David and I had bought together, that now felt like a mausoleum. I could stay here, hiding, letting them destroy me piece by piece. Or I could fight back. I grabbed my laptop and started working. As majority shareholder of Hartford Industries Private Holdings, I had access to corporate systems, financial records, personnel files, email servers, everything. I'd been so focused on surviving the attacks that I hadn't thought to use my actual power. That ended now. I started with Veronica's division, Hartford Financial Services. She was CFO, responsible for managing investment portfolios worth hundreds of millions. It took me 4 hours to find the first irregularity. Payments to a consulting firm called Prestige Advisory Solutions. $3 million over the past 2 years, paid monthly for strategic financial consulting. I dug deeper. Prestige Advisory Solutions was registered in Delaware, owned by a shell company, which was owned by another shell company, which eventually traced back to an individual named Kenneth Hartford. Veronica had been paying her husband's company $3 million of Hartford Industries money for phantom consulting work. That was embezzlement. I kept digging. Christopher's European division had similar issues. Contracts with suppliers that charged triple the market rate. Those suppliers traced back to companies Christopher had partial ownership in. More embezzlement. Or at minimum, massive conflicts of interest. Even Quiet Melissa had issues. Her investment portfolio had been used to purchase property in Martha's Vineyard, right next to her home. Property that was titled to a family trust she controlled. The Hartford children had been using their positions to funnel company money into their own pockets for years. And William had probably known, had probably seen it, and decided his children couldn't be trusted with real power because they were already abusing what little they had. I compiled everything into a report. Transactions, dates, amounts, shell companies, conflicts of interest. It was damning. Then I sent it to Lawrence with a message. Is this enough to fight back? He called me 30 seconds later. This is enough to bury them. If this gets out, they'll face criminal charges. Securities fraud. Embezzlement. Tax evasion. We're talking federal prison time. Good. Naomi, are you sure you want to do this? If you release this information, there's no going back. The family will be destroyed. David will be caught in the crossfire. I thought about David. About the restraining order he was filing against me. About him telling me our marriage hurt him every single day. David made his choice, I said. He chose them over me. Now I'm choosing the company over them. When do you want to move? Not yet. I want them to think they're winning. I want Veronica to get comfortable. And I want to find out if there's more. What else are you looking for? I don't know yet. But people this corrupt don't just steal. They cut corners. They make deals they shouldn't. I want to know every single thing they've done wrong, so when I finally strike, they can't get back up. I spent the next 3 days living in corporate records. I barely slept. Barely ate. Just dug through years of transactions, contracts, communications. And I found more. So much more. Christopher had been selling proprietary technology to competitors. Not directly, but through a web of shell companies that made it look legitimate. Hartford Industries developed manufacturing processes, Christopher's companies licensed them to rivals, and he pocketed the profits. That was theft of intellectual property. Veronica had been manipulating stock valuations to inflate her performance bonuses. She'd record profits in quarters where they didn't exist, then hide the losses later. The board gave her bonuses based on false numbers. That was fraud. Melissa's husband Robert had received a $2 million consulting fee from a medical supplier that Hartford Industries did business with. A supplier that charged Hartford Industries 40% more than their competitors. That was bribery and kickbacks. William's children had been treating Hartford Industries like their personal piggy bank. No wonder he'd cut them out of real control. On day 4 of my investigation, someone knocked on my door at 10 p.m. I checked the peephole, ready to ignore it. It was Melissa. I opened the door. She looked terrible. Red eyes, no makeup, hair pulled back messily. I can't do this anymore, she said without preamble. Can I come in? I let her in. We sat in my living room, and she started crying immediately. Veronica's out of control. She's obsessed with destroying you. She talks about you constantly. Schemes about how to hurt you, how to break you. Kenneth encourages her. They're feeding off each other. I know. Christopher's just as bad. He wants to file criminal charges against you. Elder abuse, he keeps saying. He wants to see you arrested. For being kind to your father? For daring to be chosen over them. She wiped her eyes. And I'm part of it. I signed on to the lawsuit because Veronica said if I didn't, she'd cut me out of the family. She'd turn everyone against me, make sure my kids never saw their cousins. I was scared. You were protecting yourself. I was being a coward. Just like I've always been. She looked up. Dad saw that. That's why he didn't leave me anything real. Because he knew I'd never stand up to Veronica. Never do the right thing if it was hard. Melissa. But I'm standing up now. I'm here to tell you that I'm withdrawing from the lawsuit. I'm going to issue a statement saying I believe Dad was competent and his will should be honored. And I'm going to testify for you if it goes to trial. I stared at her. You do that. It's the right thing to do. It's what Dad would have wanted. And honestly, she laughed bitterly. I'm tired of being Veronica's puppet. For once in my life, I'm going to do something brave. They'll destroy you for this. Probably. But at least I'll be able to look at myself in the mirror. She stood. I'm sorry, Naomi. For everything. You deserved better from this family. After she left, I sat in the silence and felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. One ally. One person willing to stand with me against the family's fury. It was enough to keep going. The next morning, I got another unexpected visitor. My mama. She stood on my doorstep with her overnight bag, looking tired from the drive up from Alabama. Mama? I said, shocked. What are you doing here? What's it look like? I'm checking on my daughter. She pushed past me into the house. Lord have mercy, this place is a mess. When's the last time you cleaned? Or ate? You look like a strong wind could blow you over. I've been busy. Being destroyed by rich people, I know. I saw it all on the news. And then I got to thinking about what you said. About being kind to that man, about him valuing that. And I thought about the girl I raised. She turned to face me, eyes fierce. I raised you to be kind, to work hard, to treat people with respect. And if all you did was be kind to a lonely old man, and he appreciated that enough to leave you as company, then shame on me for doubting you. I started crying. Mama, I'm sorry I didn't tell you. Hush now. You did what you had to do. And now I'm here to do what I have to do, which is remind you that you're a Bennett before you were a Hartford. And Bennetts don't quit. She pulled me into a hug, and I sobbed into her shoulder like I was 12 years old again. Now, she said when I finally pulled away, you're going to eat something. Then you're going to shower because, baby, you smell like depression. And then you're going to tell me everything, and we're going to figure out how to beat these people. They're billionaires, Mama. They have unlimited resources. And you have me. And I didn't work 3 jobs to put you through school just to watch you give up now. She headed to the kitchen. Where do you keep your groceries? Actually, never mind, I'm ordering food. You look like you haven't seen a vegetable in weeks. Having Mama there changed everything. She cleaned the house. She made me eat. She screened my calls and told reporters to go to hell with a sweetness that somehow made it more devastating. And she listened while I explained everything. The inheritance. The lawsuits. David's betrayal. The evidence I'd found against the Hartford children. So you own the company and they're criminals, she summarized. Essentially, yes. Then what are you waiting for? Expose them. Take what's yours. It's not that simple. Baby, rich people make everything complicated so poor people stay confused. But this is simple. You have proof they're thieves. You have proof they're liars. You use that proof to protect yourself and that company. What's complicated about that? David will be caught in the middle. David chose to be in the middle when he took their side over yours. You can't protect someone who won't protect you. She was right. I knew she was right. I'm scared, Mama. Good. Means you're smart. But being scared and being stopped are 2 different things. She took my hand. Your daddy, God rest him, used to say that courage isn't not being afraid. It's being afraid and doing it anyway. These people want you scared. Don't give them what they want. That night, I made a decision. I called Lawrence. I want to hold a press conference. What? A press conference. The media's been destroying me for weeks with the Hartford family's narrative. It's time I told my side. Naomi, that could backfire spectacularly. Or it could work. I'm the majority shareholder of a major corporation. I have evidence of fraud and embezzlement by the current management. I have proof of witness tampering and ongoing litigation. Why am I hiding? Why am I letting them control the story? Because they have more money and more connections. But I have the truth. And I have proof. Isn't that supposed to matter? Lawrence was quiet. When do you want to do this? Tomorrow. I want media there. I want it recorded. I want everyone to hear what really happened. This is going to start a war. The war already started. I'm just finally showing up to fight. We scheduled it for the next afternoon. Lawrence's office opened to all media. I spent the morning preparing with Mama's help. She picked out my clothes, a simple black dress, professional but not flashy. She did my hair. She made me practice my statement until I could say it without crying. Head up, shoulders back, she coached. You're not apologizing. You're setting the record straight. At 2 p.m., I walked into a conference room packed with cameras and reporters. Lawrence introduced me. Ms. Hartford has a statement regarding the ongoing litigation about William Hartford's estate. I stepped to the microphone. Every camera focused on me. Every reporter leaned forward. This was it. The moment I stopped being the victim and became something else. I looked directly into the cameras and began. My name is Naomi Hartford. For the past 6 weeks, I've been called a gold digger, a manipulator, and worse. I've been accused of seducing an old man for his money. I've had my character, my motives, and my integrity questioned by people who never bothered to know me. Today, I'm setting the record straight. I pulled out the documents. William's letters. The evidence of Veronica's witness tampering. The proof of embezzlement. William Hartford was my friend. He was a brilliant, competent man who made a choice about his legacy. He chose to leave controlling interest in his company to someone he trusted to preserve what he'd built. That person was me. Not because I manipulated him. Not because I seduced him. But because in 3 years of knowing me, he saw qualities he valued. Integrity. Loyalty. A genuine care for people over profit. I paused, letting that sink in. His children are challenging his will, claiming he was incompetent. The same man who passed multiple medical and psychological evaluations. Who ran a billion-dollar company until the day he died. Who made complex business decisions right up to his final week. They're calling him incompetent because they don't like his choice. Because they can't accept that he valued someone outside the bloodline. I held up the witness tampering evidence. But it gets worse. I have proof that Veronica Hartford paid a forensic specialist $200,000 to falsify his report. Proof that she attempted to bribe him with an additional $500,000 to commit perjury. That's not a grieving daughter seeking truth. That's someone destroying evidence because she knows the truth doesn't support her case. Reporters started shouting questions. I held up my hand. I also have evidence that the Hartford children have been embezzling from Hartford Industries for years. Millions of dollars funneled through shell companies. Conflicts of interest. Fraud. They're accusing me of stealing their inheritance while they've been stealing from their father's company all along. I laid out the documents. The shell companies. The phantom contracts. The kickbacks. So yes, William Hartford left me his company. And now I understand why. Because his children were already destroying it from the inside. They don't want to preserve his legacy. They want to profit from it. I looked directly into the camera. I didn't ask for this fight. I didn't want to be at war with my husband's family. But they've given me no choice. So I'm standing here today to say, I'm not backing down. I'm not taking a settlement. I'm not disappearing. William Hartford trusted me with his life's work, and I'm going to honor that trust. Even if it costs me everything. I stepped back from the microphone. The room exploded. Questions shouted from every direction. Cameras flashing. The press conference devolved into chaos. Lawrence guided me out a back door where Mama was waiting. How'd I do? I asked, shaking. Baby, Mama said, pulling me close, you just declared war on one of the most powerful families in Georgia. You did amazing. My phone started ringing immediately. Unknown numbers. I ignored them all. Except one. David. I answered. What the hell did you just do? He shouted. I told the truth. You accused my family of crimes on national television. You made us look like criminals. You are criminals. I have proof. This is going to destroy us. Destroy me. I work for Hartford Industries. If this becomes a scandal, my career is over. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you filed for a restraining order against me. Naomi, please. Pull back. Retract the statement. We can still fix this. We. I laughed. There is no we, David. You made that clear when you chose Veronica over me. When you helped her investigate me. When you called me a liar and moved out. I was hurt. So was I. But I didn't abandon you. You did that all on your own. I hung up. And for the first time in 6 weeks, I felt powerful. The news coverage that night was explosive. Every channel led with my press conference. Legal analysts debated the evidence. Financial experts discussed the implications of fraud at Hartford Industries. And the Hartford family issued a statement calling me delusional and promising to sue me for defamation. Let them, Lawrence said when he called. Everything you said was backed by documentation. They can't win a defamation suit against the truth. What happens now? Now they panic. Because you just took their fight public, and they can't control a public narrative the same way they control private litigation. You leveled the playing field. Or I just made everything worse. Maybe. But at least you're not facing it alone anymore. He was right. My phone had messages from people I'd worked with at the hospital, supporting me. From patients I'd cared for over the years. From people who'd followed the story and believed me. And one message from Melissa: you're brave. I wish I was more like you. I'm officially withdrawing from the lawsuit tomorrow. Whatever happens, you have my support. 2 allies. My mother and Melissa. It wasn't much. But it was more than I'd had yesterday. I sat with Mama that night, eating the soup she'd made, and I felt something shift inside me. I was done being the scared girl who let rich people push her around. I was done apologizing for being chosen by a man who saw my worth. I was done hiding. William had left me his empire because he believed I was strong enough to fight for it. Tomorrow, I'd prove him right. The press conference changed everything overnight. By morning, the FBI had opened an investigation into Hartford Industries. The Securities and Exchange Commission announced a formal inquiry. The board of directors called an emergency meeting. And I received a summons to appear before them. They're going to try to remove you, Lawrence warned. The board is stacked with Hartford family allies. They'll claim you've created a scandal, damaged the company's reputation, and violated your fiduciary duty. Can they remove me? I'm the majority shareholder. Not easily. But they can make things difficult. This meeting is their chance to intimidate you into backing down. Then they're going to be disappointed. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. at Hartford Industries headquarters. I'd never actually been to the building, a gleaming tower in downtown Atlanta with Hartford emblazoned across the top. Mama insisted on coming with me. Baby, you're walking into a den of wolves. You need someone watching your back. You can't come into the board meeting. I'll wait outside. But I'm coming. We arrived at 1:30. The lobby was packed with media. They'd gotten word about the meeting somehow. Cameras turned toward me as I entered. Questions shouted from every direction. Miss Hartford, do you stand by your accusations? Are you prepared to face the board? Is it true the FBI is investigating your claims? I stopped and faced the cameras. Mama stood beside me, a small woman with fierce eyes, and I drew strength from her presence. I stand by everything I said yesterday, I said clearly. Hartford Industries deserves leadership with integrity. That's what William Hartford wanted. That's what I'm here to provide. I walked past them to the elevators. The executive floor was all glass and marble and intimidation. A receptionist tried to stop me. The board meeting is private. I'm the majority shareholder, I said. It's my meeting. Lawrence met me outside the boardroom. They're all in there. The full board, plus Veronica, Christopher, and Kenneth. David's here too. David. He sits on the board. Minor position, but he has a vote. Of course he did. Are you ready? Lawrence asked. I thought about William's letter. About Mama driving up from Alabama. About Melissa's bravery in withdrawing from the lawsuit. About 6 weeks of hell. I'm ready. We walked in. The boardroom was designed to intimidate. 20-foot ceilings, a mahogany table that could seat 30, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Atlanta skyline. 16 board members sat around that table, and every single one turned to look at me as I entered. Veronica sat at the head of the table like she owned it. Christopher to her right. Kenneth beside him. And David, looking miserable, at the far end. "Miss Hartford," said Richard Pemberton, apparently serving as the family's attack dog even here. "Thank you for joining us. This is my company. Where else would I be? That's actually what we're here to discuss." He gestured to a seat. "Please." I sat. Lawrence beside me. Mama had stayed outside, but I could feel her presence through the walls. Richard stood, commanding the room. "The board has called this emergency meeting to address the crisis Ms. Hartford created with yesterday's reckless press conference. Her unsubstantiated allegations have triggered federal investigations, caused our stock price to drop 12%, and created a public relations nightmare. My allegations are fully substantiated," I said calmly. "I have documentation for everything I claimed." "Documentation you obtained illegally by hacking into private corporate systems." "I obtained it legally using my access as majority shareholder. I have every right to review the company's financial records." "You have no right to publicize private business information in a calculated attempt to damage the Hartford family's reputation." "I have every right to expose fraud." Veronica leaned forward. "You have no proof of fraud. You have accounting discrepancies that can be explained. You're twisting normal business practices into crimes because you're desperate to justify stealing our father's company." "I didn't steal anything. Your father gave it to me. Our father was a sick old man who you manipulated. Your father passed 3 separate competency evaluations in his final year. I have the medical records. Would you like me to share them with the board?" Veronica's face went purple. One of the board members, an older man named Gerald Thornton, cleared his throat. "Miss Hartford, regardless of the legitimacy of your inheritance, you must understand that yesterday's press conference was extraordinarily damaging. We've had clients calling all morning threatening to pull their business. Investors are panicking. You've created chaos." I exposed the truth. If that creates chaos, perhaps you should ask yourselves why the truth is so damaging. "The truth," Christopher said, speaking for the first time, "is that you're a nurse with no business experience trying to run a multi-billion-dollar corporation. You're in over your head, and rather than admit it, you're lashing out with wild accusations." Are the accusations wild? Or are they accurate? They're insane. You're claiming I sold proprietary technology to competitors. That's absurd. I pulled documents from my portfolio and slid them across the table. These are contracts between Hartford Industries and Techmark Solutions for licensing of manufacturing processes. Techmark Solutions is owned by a shell corporation in the Cayman Islands. That shell corporation is owned by another company in Delaware. That company is partially owned by you, Christopher. You sold Hartford Industries' intellectual property to yourself, then licensed it to our competitors for millions in profits that went into your pocket. The board members started reading the documents. Christopher's face went white. Those are legitimate business structures. They're theft. You stole company assets and profited personally. That's embezzlement and breach of fiduciary duty. I turned to Veronica. And you paid your husband's consulting firm $3 million over 2 years for services that were never rendered. The consulting firm exists only on paper. Kenneth never provided any actual work. You funneled company money to your husband. Those were legitimate consulting fees. For what consulting? Show me one report, one deliverable, one shred of evidence that Prestige Advisory Solutions did any actual work. Silence. You can't. Because it was a shell company designed to steal from Hartford Industries. From your own father's company. Kenneth stood abruptly. This is defamation. We're not going to sit here and be accused of crimes by some gold digger who. Sit down, Mr. Hartford, Lawrence said quietly. Or I'll have security remove you. You're here as a courtesy, not a board member. You can't talk to me. I can and I will. Sit down. Kenneth sat, furious. I continued. The board deserves to know who's actually been damaging this company. It's not me. It's the Hartford children who've been treating it as their personal bank account for years. I pulled out more documents. Melissa Hartford's investment portfolio was used to purchase property adjacent to her personal residence. Property titled to a family trust she controls. That's self-dealing. Robert Hartford received $2 million in consulting fees from a medical supplier that charges Hartford Industries 40% above market rate. That's bribery and kickbacks. Gerald Thornton looked sick. Do you have proof of all this? I have years of documentation. Transactions, shell companies, conflicts of interest, falsified records. It's all here. I placed the full report on the table. The Hartford children have stolen approximately $47 million from this company over the past 5 years. And they're accusing me of being the problem. The room erupted. Board members talking over each other. Christopher shouting denials. Veronica demanding to see the evidence. Kenneth threatening lawsuits. And David, sitting silently at the end of the table, staring at me like he'd never seen me before. Gerald Thornton banged his gavel. Order. We need order. The room quieted. Miss Hartford, Gerald said carefully, these are serious allegations. If true, they constitute criminal behavior. But you must understand, this board cannot make determinations about criminal activity. That's for law enforcement. I agree. Which is why I've already provided all of this documentation to the FBI and the SEC. I imagine they'll be here shortly to begin formal interviews. Veronica shot to her feet. You gave federal investigators our private business records? Without board approval? That's a violation of corporate governance. That's compliance with federal law. When I discover evidence of fraud, I'm legally obligated to report it. Which I did. You're destroying this family. No, Veronica. You destroyed this family when you chose greed over integrity. When you stole from your own father's company. When you tried to manipulate his will and discredit the woman he chose to protect his legacy. He didn't choose you. He was confused, manipulated. He was brilliant. And he saw exactly what you are. I pulled out the final piece of evidence. William's letter to me. The one explaining why he'd left me the company. Your father wrote this 3 months before he died. Would you like me to read it to the board? That's private. It's relevant. It explains his reasoning, his concerns, his hopes for the company. I stood. William Hartford built this company from nothing. He created jobs, supported communities, treated employees fairly. And he watched his children turn it into a scheme to enrich themselves. That's why he left controlling interest to someone outside the family. Not because I manipulated him. Because you disappointed him. I read the letter aloud. Every word. William's concerns about his children's character. His observations about their greed. His hope that I would preserve what he'd built. By the end, several board members were wiping their eyes. Veronica looked devastated. Christopher looked furious. Kenneth looked like he was calculating escape routes. And David looked broken. That's not fair, Veronica whispered. Dad didn't. He couldn't have thought. He thought exactly what he wrote. That you valued money over people. That you'd destroy his legacy for profit. And based on the evidence I've found, he was right. Gerald Thornton cleared his throat. I think this board needs to carefully consider what we've heard today. These allegations require investigation. The FBI involvement requires cooperation. And we need to determine the appropriate leadership going forward. The appropriate leadership is already clear, I said. William Hartford left controlling interest to me. That makes me the acting CEO until the board votes otherwise. And since I hold 75% of shares, good luck finding the votes to remove me. You can't seriously think you can run this company, Christopher said. You have no experience, no education, no. I have integrity. I have William's trust. And I have the legal authority. That's more than you have. The boardroom doors burst open. FBI agents in dark suits entered, badges displayed. We're looking for Veronica Hartford, Christopher Hartford, and Kenneth Hartford, the lead agent said. We have questions regarding financial irregularities at Hartford Industries. The room went silent. Veronica stood slowly. I want my lawyer. You're welcome to call one. But you're coming with us either way. I watched as FBI agents escorted the three of them out. Veronica shot me a look of pure hatred as she passed. Christopher wouldn't meet my eyes. Kenneth was already on his phone calling attorneys. The board members sat in stunned silence. Gerald finally spoke. Ms. Hartford. Naomi, what do you want to do? I looked around the table. At these men and women who'd enabled the Hartford children's theft for years. Who'd looked the other way because it was easier than confronting corruption. I want to save this company, I said. I want to restore integrity to Hartford Industries. I want to honor Williams' legacy by building something that matters. Something that treats employees fairly, serves customers honestly, and operates with transparency. That's a significant undertaking. Then it's a good thing I have time. And resources. And the legal authority to make whatever changes are necessary. I gather my documents. This board will meet again in 1 week. Between now and then, I expect every member to review the evidence I've provided, to consider your own role in allowing this corruption to continue, and to decide whether you want to be part of the solution or part of the problem. I headed for the door, Lawrence following. Miss Hartford. It was David's voice. I turned. He stood, looking lost. Can we talk? Please. I looked at my husband. The man who'd filed for divorce, who'd sought a restraining order against me, who'd chosen his family over me again and again. I have nothing to say to you, David. Please. I was wrong. About everything. I see that now. I should have trusted you. Yes, you should have. You should have believed me when I said I didn't manipulate your father. You should have stood by me when your family attacked. You should have been my partner instead of their puppet. I paused at the door. But you weren't. You made your choice. Now live with it. I walked out. Mama was waiting in the hallway, and she pulled me into a hug. How'd it go? The FBI just arrested 3 members of the Hartford family for fraud. I claimed my position as CEO. And I told David to go to hell. She grinned. That's my girl. We walked out of Hartford Industries together, past the media who were now filming FBI agents leading Veronica, Christopher, and Kenneth out of the building in front of cameras. The optics were devastating. The mighty Hartford family, exposed as criminals, arrested for stealing from their own father's company. And me, the woman they'd called a gold digger, revealed as the person trying to save it. My phone buzzed. A text from Melissa. I saw the news. I'm so sorry for my siblings. Thank you for having the courage I didn't. Whatever you need, I'm here. Then another message. From Lawrence. You did it. You actually did it. William would be proud. I thought about William. About his letter. About him sitting in his office telling me I was stronger than his entire family combined. He'd known this day would come. He'd prepared me for it. He'd given me the tools to survive it. And I had. That night, the news coverage was wall-to-wall Hartford scandal. Every channel showed Veronica being led out by FBI agents. Every legal analyst discussed the evidence of embezzlement. Every business reporter questioned how the corruption had gone unnoticed for so long. And they showed my press conference. My statement about integrity. My defense of William's choice. The narrative had shifted. I wasn't the gold digger anymore. I was the whistleblower. The unlikely hero. The woman who'd stood up to one of Georgia's most powerful families and won. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Ms. Hartford? This is Amanda Chen from the Wall Street Journal. I'm doing a feature story on corporate corruption and family dynamics. Would you be willing to sit for an interview? What kind of interview? Your side of the story. Who you are, how you met William Hartford, why he trusted you with his company. The human story behind the headlines. I thought about it. About controlling my own narrative for once. Yes, I said. I'll do it. Over the next week, I did 17 interviews. Print, television, radio. I told my story. The real story. The nursing assistant who married into wealth and found herself at the center of an empire. The daughter-in-law who became friends with a billionaire. The woman who inherited not because she manipulated, but because she cared. The public response was overwhelming. Support poured in from everywhere. Working-class people who saw themselves in my story. Women who'd been underestimated. People who'd watched the wealthy abuse their power and wanted to see consequences. I became, bizarrely, a folk hero. The woman who took down the corrupt billionaires. It was surreal. The board meeting 1 week later was very different from the first. For board members had resigned, unwilling to face scrutiny about their oversight failures. The remaining members arrived subdued, chastened. Gerald Thornton called the meeting to order. Ms. Hartford, you have the floor. I stood. I'd prepared for this all week. Researched. Consulted with business experts. Talked to employees. Understood what Hartford Industries needed. This company employs 4,000 people across 17 divisions. Those employees depend on us for their livelihoods, their healthcare, their futures. They've been collateral damage in the Hartford family's greed for too long. I pulled out my plan. I'm proposing a complete restructuring, starting with leadership. I'm officially assuming the role of CEO. I'm appointing an independent CFO to replace Veronica Hartford, someone with no family connections. I'm hiring a new head of European operations to replace Christopher. And I'm implementing new oversight mechanisms to prevent the kind of corruption we've uncovered. That's a significant upheaval, Gerald said. It's necessary. This company needs to rebuild trust. With employees, with clients, with the public. We do that by demonstrating genuine change. I outlined the rest of my plan. Employee profit sharing. Ethical sourcing requirements. Community investment programs. A corporate culture built on transparency and integrity. This is William Hartford's legacy, I said. Not wealth for the wealthy. Opportunity for everyone. A company that treats people right and does business honestly. That's what he wanted. That's what I'm going to build. The board voted unanimously to approve my plan. Because really, what choice did they have? I owned 75%. I had the authority. I had the public support. I had one. After the meeting, I walked through the Hartford Industries building as CEO for the first time. Employees I'd never met congratulated me, thanked me, told me they were grateful someone finally cared about them. I visited the manufacturing floor, met workers who'd been with the company for 20 years, heard their stories about William, about how he used to walk the floor and know everyone's name. He was a good man, one worker told me. These past few years, it felt like the company forgot that. Forgot him. But you remember. I remember, I said. That evening, I sat in William's old office, my office now, and looked out at the Atlanta skyline. 6 weeks ago, I'd been nobody. A nursing assistant married to a weak man from a cruel family. Now I was the CEO of a billion-dollar corporation. I had the power to shape the lives of thousands of employees. The responsibility to honor a good man's legacy. It was terrifying. It was exhilarating. It was exactly what William had prepared me for. My phone buzzed. A message from David. I saw your interview on CNN. You were amazing. I'm sorry for everything. I know I don't deserve it, but can we please talk? I stared at the message for a long time. Then I deleted it. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. And I had more important things to do than look backward. I had a company to run, a legacy to honor, and a future to build. 3 months after I became CEO, Veronica Hartford pleaded guilty to embezzlement and fraud. The prosecution had offered her a deal, plead guilty, cooperate fully, and receive 7 years instead of 20. She took it. She had no choice. The evidence was overwhelming, and her legal team told her that fighting would only make things worse. I watched the sentencing on the news from my office. Veronica, dressed in a conservative suit, standing before a judge who showed no sympathy for wealthy criminals who stole from their own family's company. "You betrayed a position of trust," the judge said. "You exploited your father's legacy for personal gain. You showed no remorse until you were caught. 7 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years probation. You will also make full restitution to Hartford Industries in the amount of $14 million. Veronica's face crumbled. Kenneth sat in the gallery, looking 10 years older than he had 3 months ago. Christopher's case was still pending. He was fighting the charges, claiming the shell companies were legitimate business structures. His lawyers were expensive and aggressive, but the evidence was damning. The trial was scheduled for next spring. Kenneth faced charges of conspiracy and money laundering. His attorney was negotiating a plea deal, but the prosecution wasn't being generous. They wanted to make an example of the Hartford family corruption. I should have felt victorious watching Veronica sentenced. Instead, I just felt tired. "You okay?" Mama asked. She'd stayed in Atlanta, taken a leave of absence from her job in Alabama, and appointed herself my unofficial advisor and bodyguard. "I'm fine. Just thinking." "About David?" "No. About William. About whether this is what he wanted. Baby, he wanted the truth to come out. He wanted his company protected. He wanted you to be strong enough to do what his children couldn't." She squeezed my hand. Mission accomplished. The divorce papers had been finalized 2 weeks ago. David had stopped fighting it after the FBI arrests. Our marriage officially ended on a Tuesday afternoon in a judge's chambers. No drama, no fight. Just signatures and sadness. He'd tried one last time to talk to me the week before. "I know I don't deserve another chance," he'd said, standing in the Hartford Industries lobby looking broken. "I know I failed you in every way that mattered. But Naomi, I still love you. I never stopped. Love isn't enough, David. You chose your family over me. You called me a liar. You filed for a restraining order against your own wife. Love without trust, without support, without partnership, that's not love. That's just words." I was scared. Confused. They were my family. I was your family too. I was supposed to be your partner. But when it mattered, you picked them. You always pick them. If I could do it over. But you can't. That's not how life works. I'd looked at him, this man I'd once loved enough to marry, and felt nothing but sadness. "I hope you find happiness, David. I really do. But you're not going to find it with me." He'd signed the papers the next day. Now I was Naomi Hartford, CEO and majority shareholder of Hartford Industries, and single for the first time in 4 years. It was strange, liberating and lonely at the same time. But I didn't have time to dwell on my personal life. I had a company to rebuild. The first 3 months as CEO were brutal. 16-hour days. Constant meetings. Difficult decisions about restructuring and staffing. Pushback from old guard executives who didn't want to change. But slowly, things started improving. I'd hired Marcus Webb, the forensic specialist who'd given me evidence against Veronica, as our new head of corporate compliance. His job was to make sure the kind of corruption that had festered under the Hartford children never happened again. I'd brought in an independent CFO named Patricia Okafor, a Nigerian-American woman with an MBA from Wharton and a reputation for aggressive ethics. She'd cleaned up 3 troubled companies before Hartford Industries, and she took no prisoners. "Your sister-in-law was running the sloppiest embezzlement scheme I've ever seen," Patricia told me during our first month working together. "A competent auditor would have caught it in a week." The fact that it went on for years tells me the board was either incompetent or complicit. What do we do about that? We clean house. Gently, because we don't want lawsuits. But we make it clear that the old way of doing business is over. We did exactly that. For more board members resigned over the next 2 months. We replaced them with people who had actual expertise and no Hartford family connections. The new board was diverse, qualified, and committed to transparency. I also made changes to how we treated employees. First, I implemented profit sharing. 20% of annual profits would be distributed to employees based on tenure and performance. The executives hated it. The workers loved it. Why should frontline employees get profit sharing? One executive complained. They don't make strategic decisions. They make the products that generate the profits, I replied. They're the ones who show up every day and do the actual work. Why shouldn't they share in the success they create? He'd resigned 2 weeks later. I didn't miss him. I also raised the minimum wage for Hartford Industries employees to $18 an hour, well above market rate. This is going to hurt our bottom line, Patricia warned. In the short term. Long term, we'll have better retention, higher productivity, and a reputation as an employer that treats people right. That's worth more than saving a few million on wages. She'd smiled. I like the way you think. I visited every Hartford Industries location over those 3 months. All 17 divisions. I met with employees, asked about their concerns, listened to their ideas. At the manufacturing plant in Tennessee, a woman named Dorothy who'd worked there for 18 years hugged me and cried. Mr. Hartford used to visit all the time, she said. He knew all our names. After he died, the new management treated us like we were invisible. But you came. You actually care. I do care. This company is nothing without the people who make it run. You're just like him, she said. He'd be so proud. I hoped she was right. The company's transformation didn't go unnoticed. Business journals wrote features about my leadership. I was profiled in Forbes, Fortune, and the Wall Street Journal. The headline on the Forbes piece read, From Nursing Assistant to CEO, How Naomi Hartford Saved a Billion-Dollar Empire. The attention was overwhelming and occasionally ridiculous. I was invited to speak at conferences, join corporate boards, participate in leadership panels. I turned down most of it. I was too busy actually running the company. But I accepted one invitation to speak at a women's leadership conference about overcoming adversity. Standing on that stage, looking out at 2,000 women who'd paid to hear me speak, felt surreal. 5 months ago, I told them I was a nursing assistant married to a man whose family thought I wasn't good enough for them. I had no money, no power, no connections. What I had was integrity, work ethic, a willingness to be kind when it would have been easier to be cruel. And that was enough. I told them about William, about how he'd valued character over pedigree, about how he'd trusted me with his legacy not because I was the obvious choice, but because I was the right choice. When his children challenged that choice, when they tried to destroy me for daring to be selected, I had a decision to make. I could give up, take a settlement, disappear. Or I could fight. Fight for what William believed in. Fight for the employees who depended on the company. Fight for the idea that integrity actually matters. I paused, looking out at the sea of faces. I chose to fight. And it cost me almost everything. My marriage. My privacy. My sense of safety. There were days I wasn't sure I'd survive it. But I did. And now I run a company that employs 4,000 people and generates $400 million a year. Not because I'm smarter than everyone else. Not because I had advantages. But because I refused to let powerful people tell me I didn't belong. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Afterward, women lined up to talk to me, to share their own stories of being underestimated, overlooked, dismissed, to thank me for showing them that fighting back was possible. One young black woman, maybe 25, grabbed my hand with tears in her eyes. I'm a paralegal at a firm where they treat me like I'm invisible, she said. I've been thinking about quitting. But watching what you did, it made me realize I can fight instead. I can demand better. Thank you. You're stronger than they think, I told her. Don't let them convince you otherwise. Melissa became an unexpected ally in the company transformation. After Veronica's arrest, Melissa had done something I never expected. She'd asked if she could work for me. "I know I don't deserve the opportunity," she'd said, sitting in my office looking nervous. "I signed onto the lawsuit against you. I was complicit in my siblings' corruption by staying silent. I've been weak my entire life. But I want to change. I want to help fix what my family broke." "What do you want to do?" "Community outreach. Corporate philanthropy. Dad used to talk about giving back, but we never really prioritized it. I want to build programs that actually help people, that honor his legacy the right way." I'd given her the job. Not a major position, not anything that gave her real power, but an opportunity to prove herself. She'd exceeded every expectation. In 3 months, Melissa established scholarship programs for children of Hartford Industries employees. She created partnerships with local technical schools to provide job training. She organized volunteer programs where executives spent time working frontline jobs to understand the business from the ground up. "This is what Dad wanted," she told me during one of our weekly meetings. He wanted the company to mean something beyond profit, to actually improve people's lives. Veronica and Christopher never understood that. Do you think they understand it now? Veronica's in prison, so she has a lot of time to think about it. Christopher. She shook her head. He still thinks he did nothing wrong. He'll fight the charges until they force him to stop. And you? I understand that I wasted years being the person everyone expected instead of who I could be. But I'm trying to change that. Thanks to you. I didn't do anything. You showed me what courage looks like. That's everything. 6 months after becoming CEO, Hartford Industries posted its best quarterly results in 5 years. Revenue was up 18%. Employee satisfaction scores had doubled. Client retention was at an all-time high. The corruption scandal, which could have destroyed the company, had instead led to a complete revitalization. The board was thrilled. "You've done in 6 months what we couldn't do in 6 years, Gerald Thornton told me." William chose well. William chose someone who couldn't afford to fail, I corrected. That's different from choosing well. But privately, I was proud. I'd taken a company in crisis and turned it around. I'd honored William's trust. I'd protected 4,000 jobs. I'd done exactly what he'd asked me to do. My personal life took longer to rebuild. Mama eventually went back to Alabama, but she called me every Sunday. We talked for hours about the business, about life, about everything I was learning. "You're not the same girl who married David Hartford," she observed one Sunday. "You're harder. Sharper. Is that bad?" "It's necessary. The world tried to break you, baby. You had to get harder to survive it. Just don't get so hard you forget how to be soft when it matters." "What does that mean?" "It means don't let what they did turn you bitter. Don't let their cruelty make you cruel. You survived because of your character. Don't lose that now that you've won." I thought about her words a lot over the following weeks. 7 months after the divorce, David reached out one last time. We met for coffee at a neutral location, a small cafe far from Hartford Industries and the media attention. He looked different. Thinner. Older. The softness that had once attracted me was gone, replaced by something more weathered. "Thank you for meeting me," he said. "You said it was important." "It is. I wanted to apologize. Really apologize, not just ask for another chance." He looked down at his coffee. "I've been in therapy, trying to understand why I handled everything so badly. Why I couldn't stand up to my family. Why I hurt you." "What did you figure out?" "That I've spent my whole life trying to be who they wanted instead of who I am. That I chose the easy path every single time because I was scared of conflict. That I'm weak in the ways that matter most." He looked up, eyes red. "You deserved a partner who would fight for you. I wasn't that person. I'm sorry." I studied him. This man I'd once loved. This man who'd broken my heart by choosing his family's lies over our marriage. "I forgive you," I said. He blinked. "You do?" "Yes. Not because you deserve it. Not because it changes anything. But because carrying around anger at you is exhausting, and I have better things to do with my energy. Do you think? Is there any chance we could try again? Start over. No, David. We're done. We've been done since the day you walked out and told me being married to me hurt every single day. I didn't mean. Yes, you did. And you were right. Our marriage was broken long before your father died. I just didn't want to see it. I finished my coffee. I hope you find happiness. I hope you become the person you want to be instead of who your family expects. But you're going to do that without me. What will you do? I'm going to run Hartford Industries. I'm going to honor your father's legacy. I'm going to build a life I'm proud of. I stood. And I'm going to do it all without worrying about whether I'm good enough for the Hartford family. Because I finally understand that the problem was never me. It was them. I left him sitting there and walked out into the Atlanta sunshine. And I felt free. 1 year after William's death, I organized a memorial event at Hartford Industries. Not a sad funeral. A celebration. A tribute to the man who'd built something meaningful and trusted me to preserve it. We invited everyone. Employees past and present. Business partners. Community leaders. Even the Hartford family, though I wasn't sure they'd come. Melissa came. She'd been working with me for months now, building the community programs William had always talked about. Christopher was in prison awaiting trial, so he wasn't there. But his lawyer had sent a statement saying Christopher regretted the pain his actions had caused. Kenneth was out on bail, banned from serving on any corporate boards, basically finished in the business world. David came, standing at the back of the crowd, respectful and quiet. And to my shock, Veronica came. She was out on bail pending her appeal, wearing an ankle monitor under her dress slacks, looking diminished in a way I'd never seen before. She approached me before the ceremony started. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said quietly. I was cruel to you from the day we met. I saw you as a threat instead of family. I tried to destroy you because I couldn't accept that Dad saw something in you that he didn't see in me. Why are you telling me this? Because I've had a lot of time to think about who I am and what I've done. And I've realized that Dad was right about all of us. We were spoiled, entitled, corrupt. We treated his company like a piggy bank and his trust like a joke. You were the only one who actually cared about his legacy. I didn't know what to say. I'm going to prison for 7 years, she continued. I'll lose everything. My position, my reputation, my freedom. And the worst part is, I deserve it. I deserve all of it. She paused. I just wanted you to know that before I go. That you were right. About everything. She walked away before I could respond. The memorial was beautiful. Employees shared stories about William visiting the manufacturing floors, remembering their names, asking about their families. Business partners talked about his integrity, his handshake deals that he always honored, his reputation for treating people fairly. Melissa gave a speech about their father's vision for Hartford Industries as more than just a profit machine. About his dreams of creating opportunity and supporting communities. And I spoke last. William Hartford gave me an impossible gift, I said, looking out at the hundreds of people gathered. He gave me power I didn't ask for, responsibility I felt unprepared for, and trust one wasn't sure I deserved. He looked at a nursing assistant from Alabama and saw someone who could run his empire. Most people thought he was crazy. His own children thought I'd manipulated him. I paused, letting that hang in the air. But William wasn't crazy. He was brilliant. He knew exactly what he was doing. He gave me Hartford Industries not because I was the most qualified or the most experienced. He gave it to me because he knew I'd fight for what was right even when it cost me everything. He knew I'd protect his employees. He knew I'd preserve his legacy instead of exploiting it. I looked at Melissa, who was wiping tears from her eyes. This past year has been the hardest of my life. I've lost my marriage, my privacy, my sense of safety. I've been investigated, attacked, and destroyed in the media. But I've also learned something valuable. That character matters. That integrity is worth fighting for. That sometimes the person nobody expects is exactly the person who's needed. I held up a photo of William, taken at one of our lunches together. He was laughing at something I'd said, eyes crinkled with genuine joy. William Hartford built something that mattered. A company that treats people right and does business honestly. My job, for as long as I'm honored to hold it, is to make sure that legacy continues. To make sure Hartford Industries is always a place where character counts more than connections, where employees are valued, where integrity drives decisions. The applause was thunderous. After the ceremony, employees lined up to thank me, to share their own William stories, to tell me how much the changes at Hartford Industries had meant to them. Dorothy, the woman from the Tennessee plant, hugged me tight. "He's watching over you," she whispered. "I know he is. And he's so proud." I hoped she was right. As the event wound down, I found myself alone in William's old office, looking at the photo of us from that lunch. "I did it," I said to his image. "I survived them. I saved your company. I became the person you believed I could be." I could almost hear his response. "I never doubted you for a second." My phone buzzed. A text from Mama. "Saw the memorial on the news. You did good, baby. Real good. Your daddy would be proud too." Then another text from an unknown number. "Ms. Hartford, this is Angela Brooks from the Harvard Business School. We'd like to invite you to speak to our MBA students about ethical leadership and corporate transformation. Are you interested?" Harvard Business School, wanting me to teach their students. A year ago, I'd been cleaning out my locker at a hospital, fired because a wealthy family wanted to punish me. Now I was being invited to Harvard. I looked around the office, at the company I now ran, at the city skyline beyond the windows, at the life I'd built from the ashes of everything I'd lost. And I smiled. 2 years after inheriting Hartford Industries, I stood in front of a mirror in my new home, a modest house in a quiet Atlanta neighborhood, nothing like the Hartford mansions, but perfect for me, and barely recognized myself. I'd cut my hair short, a power bob that framed my face. I'd learned to dress for boardrooms and television appearances. I'd developed a presence that commanded attention without demanding it. But the biggest change was internal. I'd found a strength I didn't know I possessed, a certainty about my worth that no one could shake. Hartford Industries was thriving. We'd expanded into 2 new markets. Employee retention was at 97%. We'd been named one of the best companies to work for in America by 3 different publications. And I'd started a foundation in William's name. The Hartford Legacy Foundation provided college scholarships to children from working-class families, funded small business loans in underserved communities, and supported programs that promoted ethical leadership. Melissa ran it, and she was extraordinary. "This is what Dad always wanted," she told me at our foundation's first annual gala. "To use wealth to create opportunity. You're making his dreams real." My personal life had found its own rhythm too. I wasn't dating anyone serious, but I'd learned to be content alone, to find joy in my work, in friendships, in the life I'd built. Mama visited monthly now, staying in my guest room and telling everyone in Alabama about her daughter, the CEO. And sometimes, late at night when I couldn't sleep, I'd pull out William's letters and read them again. "You're strong enough," he'd written. "Now you need to believe it too." I believed it now. As I stood in my home office, looking at photos from the foundation gala, my phone rang. "Gerald Thornton. Naomi, I wanted to give you advance notice. The board is voting tomorrow on a proposal to remove the acting from your title, to make you permanent CEO of Hartford Industries." What's the vote going to be? Unanimous in favor. You've proven yourself beyond any doubt. The company's never been stronger. You're exactly the leader we need. After we hung up, I sat with that information. Permanent CEO. Not the temporary caretaker of William's legacy, but the confirmed leader of Hartford Industries. It was everything I'd fought for, everything I'd sacrificed for, everything William had believed I could be. I picked up my phone and did something I hadn't done in months. I called David. Naomi? He sounded surprised. Is everything okay? Everything's fine. I just wanted you to know that the board is making me permanent CEO tomorrow. I wanted to tell you personally. Silence. Then, congratulations. Seriously. You deserve it. Thank you. I saw the foundation gala coverage. The scholarship program. It's incredible what you're doing. It's what your father wanted. He'd be so proud of you. I know I'm proud of you too. For what it's worth. It's worth something. We were married for 3 years. You were important to me. I'm glad you're doing well. I'm trying. Therapy helps. I'm actually working with a nonprofit now, helping underprivileged kids get access to education. It's not running a billion-dollar company, but it matters. It does matter. That's good, David. Really good. Maybe we can get coffee sometime? As friends. Maybe. Let me get through this board vote first. Of course. Good luck tomorrow. Thanks. After we hung up, I realized I'd smiled through the whole conversation. David and I would never be married again, but maybe we could find our way to something like friendship eventually. Maybe. The board vote the next day was, as promised, unanimous. I was officially the CEO of Hartford Industries. No qualifications, no probation period, no acting title. Just CEO. The press conference afterward was packed with media. Miss Hartford, how does it feel to go from nursing assistant to CEO of a billion-dollar company? Surreal. Terrifying. Right. All of those things at once. What would you say to other women from working-class backgrounds who aspire to leadership? I thought carefully about my answer. I'd say that your background doesn't define your capabilities. I'd say that character and integrity matter more than pedigree. I'd say that when people tell you you don't belong, it usually means you're exactly where you need to be, threatening their comfortable assumptions. What's next for Hartford Industries? We're going to keep doing what we've been doing. Treating employees fairly. Operating ethically. Building products that matter. Making decisions based on values, not just profits. William Hartford built this company on integrity. As long as I'm CEO, that's going to continue. Any plans for your personal life? Romance? I laughed. I'm focused on running the company. Romance can wait until I've managed more than 2 years without a crisis. The reporters laughed with me. After the press conference, I walked through Hartford Industries as CEO, no longer acting or temporary, and employees congratulated me. People I'd never met knew my story, knew what I'd survived, knew that I'd fought for them as much as for myself. Thank you for not selling out, one manufacturing worker told me. They offered you $200 million to disappear. You could have taken it and lived like a queen. But you stayed and fought for us. That means everything. You're worth fighting for, I told him. That night, I went to William's grave. It was a simple headstone, not ostentatious despite his wealth. Just his name, his dates, and a quote he'd chosen himself. Character is destiny. I sat on the grass next to his grave and talked to him like I used to when he was alive. I did it, William. I survived your children's attacks. I saved your company. I became the CEO you knew I could be. I hope I made you proud. The wind rustled through the trees, and I could almost hear his voice. I was always proud of you. I told him about the foundation, about Melissa's transformation, about the company's success, about David moving on and finding purpose, about Veronica in prison, hopefully learning the lessons she'd refused to learn in freedom. Your plan worked, I said. The test you designed. The waiting period, the hidden inheritance, all of it. You gave me the tools to protect myself and the time to prove who I really was. You gave your children the rope to hang themselves. And you gave me a future I never could have imagined. I placed flowers on his grave. Simple wildflowers, not expensive roses. The kind of flowers that reminded me of Alabama, of home, of who I was before any of this started. I won't let you down, I promised. As long as I'm running Hartford Industries, it's going to be the company you dreamed it could be. A place that treats people right. A place that values character over credentials. A place that makes the world a little bit better. I stood to leave, then paused. Thank you, I said, for seeing me, for believing in me, for giving me the chance to become who I was meant to be. I'll spend the rest of my life earning that trust. I walked back to my car feeling lighter than I had in months. 3 years after William's death, I attended Veronica's parole hearing. She'd served 3.5 years of her 7-year sentence, and she was up for early release based on good behavior. I wasn't sure why I felt compelled to be there, but I sat in the back of the hearing room and watched as Veronica faced the parole board. She looked different. Prison had humbled her in ways nothing else ever could. The sharp edges were worn down. The arrogance was gone. I take full responsibility for my actions, she told the board. I stole from my father's company. I abused a position of trust. I tried to destroy someone who'd done nothing wrong because I couldn't accept that my father valued her character over my bloodline. She paused, swallowing hard. I've had 3.5 years to think about the person I was and the person I want to be. I was cruel, entitled, corrupt. I hurt people. I dishonored my father's legacy. And I'm deeply, profoundly sorry. What would you do if released? A board member asked. I'd try to make amends. I'd work with my sister Melissa on the Hartford Legacy Foundation, if they'd have me. I'd spend the rest of my life trying to be the person my father hoped I'd be instead of the person I became. The parole board deliberated for 20 minutes. Then they granted her early release. Veronica walked out of that hearing room and saw me waiting. You came, she said, shocked. I did. Why? Because I wanted to see if you'd actually changed. If prison had taught you anything. And? I think it has. I think you're finally understanding what your father was trying to teach you all along. She nodded, tears in her eyes. I owe you an apology that I can never fully make. I tried to destroy you. I paid people to lie. I weaponized everything I had against you because I couldn't stand that Dad chose you. He chose me because I wouldn't abuse the power he was giving me. Because he knew I'd protect the company instead of exploiting it. He was right. You saved Hartford Industries. You honored his legacy. You became everything he hoped his children would be. She wiped her eyes. Thank you for not letting us destroy it. For being strong enough to survive us. What will you do now? Rebuild my life. Make amends where I can. Try to be useful. Melissa says the foundation could use help with fundraising. I'm good at that, or I used to be. Maybe I can use those skills for something good instead of just enriching myself. I hope you do. William would like that. We parted awkwardly, but without animosity. I didn't trust her, might never fully trust her, but I believed she was trying to change. That was something. 5 years after becoming CEO, Hartford Industries hit a major milestone, $1 billion in annual revenue. The celebration was held at the manufacturing plant in Tennessee, the heart of the company, where the workers who actually made the products could be part of the moment. I stood on the factory floor surrounded by employees and gave a speech about what we'd accomplished together. 5 years ago, this company was in crisis. Corruption, lawsuits, federal investigations. We could have collapsed. Instead, we rebuilt. We focused on what mattered: integrity, quality, people. And look where we are now. The employees cheered. This billion-dollar milestone isn't mine. It's yours. Every person in this room contributed to this success. Every product you made, every customer you served, every day you showed up and did excellent work. This is your victory. You earned it. The profit-sharing bonuses that year were the largest in company history. Frontline workers received checks averaging $15,000. Some cried when they saw the amounts. This is going to change my life, one worker told me. My kids' college fund just got fully funded. I can't thank you enough. Thank the company. Thank yourself for being excellent at what you do. This is what happens when everyone shares in the success they create. The media coverage of our billion-dollar milestone focused as much on the profit-sharing program as the revenue itself. Hartford Industries proves that ethical capitalism is possible, one business journal wrote. Under CEO Naomi Hartford's leadership, the company has shown that treating employees well and operating with integrity doesn't hurt the bottom line, it enhances it. I was invited to speak at conferences worldwide, to testify before Congress about corporate ethics, to advise other CEOs on building ethical corporate cultures. It was exhausting and exhilarating in equal measure. But through it all, I never forgot where I came from. Never forgot that 5 years ago, I was a nursing assistant wondering if I'd survive the week. I kept a photo in my office from those dark days. Me looking exhausted and defeated after a particularly brutal deposition. I looked at it whenever I felt overwhelmed to remind myself how far I'd come. From that broken woman to this, CEO of a billion-dollar company, respected leader, someone who'd changed thousands of lives for the better. William had been right. I'd been strong enough all along. I just needed to believe it. 10 years after William's death, I stood at a podium receiving the Business Leadership Ethics Award from the International Chamber of Commerce. The award recognized leaders who demonstrated exceptional ethical standards and corporate responsibility. Naomi Hartford transformed a company in crisis into a model of ethical business, the presenter said. She proved that integrity and profitability aren't competing values, but complementary ones. She's not just a successful CEO. She's a role model for what leadership should be. I accepted the award thinking about William. About that rusted car in the storage unit. About the test he designed and the trust he'd placed in me. In my acceptance speech, I told his story. 10 years ago, a man I respected died and left me an inheritance everyone thought was worthless. A rusted car. People laughed. They mocked me. They couldn't understand why a billionaire would leave his daughter-in-law garbage while giving his children mansions. I paused, looking out at the audience of business leaders from around the world. But that car wasn't garbage. It was a test. Inside it was the greatest gift anyone could give, trust. The trust that I'd do the right thing even when it was hard. The trust that I'd fight for what mattered even when I was afraid. The trust that character would guide me when credentials fell short. I held up the award. This award isn't mine alone. It belongs to William Hartford, who believed in me when no one else did. It belongs to every employee at Hartford Industries who shows up every day and does excellent work. It belongs to everyone who's ever been underestimated and fought to prove their worth. The standing ovation lasted 10 minutes. Afterward, a young woman approached me. She reminded me of myself 10 years ago, nervous, hopeful, fighting to be seen. Miss Hartford, I'm a graduate student studying business ethics. Your story inspired my thesis. Can I ask you one question? Of course. If you could go back and change anything about the past 10 years, would you? I thought about it carefully. About the pain, the loneliness, the terror of those early months. About losing David, my job, my mother's trust. About being hunted by the media and attacked by one of the wealthiest families in America. No, I said finally. I wouldn't change a thing. Because every terrible moment taught me something. Every loss made me stronger. Every attack proved I could survive more than I thought possible. If I changed the hard parts, I wouldn't be the person I am now. And I like who I've become. She smiled, tears in her eyes. Thank you. I needed to hear that. As I flew home from the awards ceremony, I thought about that question more deeply. Would I really not change anything? The truth was complicated. I'd lost my marriage. I'd been traumatized by the attacks. I'd sacrificed relationships and privacy and peace. But I'd gained so much more. I'd found my strength. I'd discovered my purpose. I'd built a life that mattered, not just to me but to thousands of employees and their families. I'd honored a good man's legacy. I'd become someone I was proud to be, and that was worth every terrible moment. Now, as I sit here recording this story, 12 years after William Hartford's death, I'm 40 years old and still CEO of Hartford Industries. The company generates $1.3 billion in annual revenue. We employ 6,000 people across 23 divisions. We've been named one of America's most ethical companies for 7 consecutive years. The Hartford Legacy Foundation has provided scholarships to over 5,000 students, funded 200 small businesses, and invested $30 million in underserved communities. Melissa runs the foundation brilliantly. She found her purpose in giving back, and she's exceptional at it. Veronica works with her, focusing on fundraising. She's rebuilt her reputation slowly, proving through years of consistent effort that her change was real. We're not close, but we're civil. Sometimes that's enough. Christopher served 4 years in prison and was released on parole. He works in manufacturing now, regular factory work, earning an honest living for the first time in his life. He and I exchange Christmas cards. Small gestures, but meaningful. David remarried 3 years ago. I met his wife at a charity event. She's kind and strong, exactly what he needs. I'm genuinely happy for him. We're not friends exactly, but we're friendly. The anger is gone, replaced by something like mutual respect for the people we've both become. Mama retired last year. I bought her a house in Alabama near her sister's, and she spends her days gardening and telling everyone about her daughter, the CEO. We talk every Sunday, without fail. And me? I'm living a life I never could have imagined. Leading a company that makes a difference. Using my platform to advocate for ethical business and workers' rights. Dating occasionally, though no one's serious yet. Maybe someday. But mostly, I'm content. Fulfilled. Proud of what I've built and who I've become. I still have that rusted car, by the way. The 1967 Impala that started everything. I had it restored, every piece brought back to its original glory. It sits in a garage at Hartford Industries headquarters, a reminder that the most valuable gifts sometimes come in unexpected packages. Sometimes I sit in that car and read William's letters again. "Are you strong enough?" he asked. I was. I am. And if you're watching this, if you're facing your own impossible situation, your own powerful enemies, your own moment of having to choose between giving up and fighting back, let me tell you what I learned. You're stronger than you think. The people trying to destroy you are counting on you not knowing that. Prove them wrong. Character matters. Integrity matters. The right thing is often the hard thing, but it's still the right thing. And sometimes, the person everyone underestimates is exactly the person who changes everything. I was that person. You can be too. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here with me on this journey. If this story touched you, if it inspired you, if it made you believe that standing up to powerful people is possible, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment telling me where you're watching from and what part of the story resonated with you. Because stories like this matter. They remind us that the world doesn't belong to the loudest or the richest or the most ruthless. Sometimes it belongs to the ones who simply refuse to give up. I'm Naomi Hartford, CEO of Hartford Industries and proud inheritor of a rusted car that changed my life. And this is how I went from being the family joke to running the whole show. Thank you. And remember, you're stronger than you think.